Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Uzumaki clan lied to about Naruto. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Randomness-is-my-order and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Nights are a peaceful thing in 10-year-old Naruto's life. They bring the calm he secretly enjoys after days full of loud proclamations and chatter at the Shinobi Academy. Konoha in itself is a village carved out of life, colors, vibrancy and sounds. Lots of sounds. The continuous shuffling of booted feet as civilians walk around from sunrise to sunset, the howling of animals from the forest surrounding Konoha, the opening of doors and windows, songs drifting through the village, carrying the melodies of 100 birds. Naruto likes those sounds too, they fill the otherwise perpetual silence in his life, they give him things to think about, and he prefers that over his thoughts that stray down dark paths sometimes. But nights bring not only silence from the world around him, but also within him. A torrent being soothed and contained, that's what Naruto feels like. Only the soft murmurs of some drunk shinobi or civilians and the occasional hoot of an owl reach his ears. He lays in his bed, idly counting the cracks in the ceiling. Hikari-sensei had told them that doing so helps bore the mind enough to let go of its consciousness and let slumber kick in. It never works for Naruto, though. Yet the counting is helpful. He revises his tables sometimes, bunching 2 or 3 cracks together, and though he inevitably forgets them a week later, during that week the math sums are much easier to solve. He wants to sleep. He knows he should sleep. Academy starts at 6 in the morning tomorrow, and they've got an inter-class sparring match. He'll need all his rest if he wants to beat some of his more powerful peers, like Sasuke or even Kiba. But that anger, warm and uncomfortable, is flowing through him again. It's a recurring event in his short life whenever he's had a particularly bad day, Mizuki-sensei giving him a tongue lashing for poor taijutsu form with blatant hatred in his eyes, or the old lady at the vegetable stall, denying him the purchase of peas, pointedly ignoring him, anger simmers within his veins. It feels like his, but also not his at all. Like it's tainted, messed with, and what comes out is his anger, but with someone else's essence in it. It's odd. The anger doesn't feel soothing, but it feels fulfilling, like his chakra pathways are being overwhelmed with energy. They thrum with life and something powerful, tingling his fingertips and setting his palms on fire. It usually doesn't last long, his anger dwindles very fast. With it, the unusual sensation of liquid fury dissipates from his insides, and he feels hollow and empty for a bit before his mellow, blue chakra fills his pathways again, but not completely, not fully. Not today though. As the breeze whistles in his ears, forcing a shiver to run down his spine, he pulls his ratty blanket to cover himself right up to his neck. Rage bubbles beneath his skin, memories from earlier today are running rampant in his head. So today we'll be doing a brief lesson on the smaller, less prominent clans of Konoha, Iruka-sensei says, smiling at the lot of his students. It's important for us to understand not only the major clans like the Hyuga, the Akimichis, the Naras. His eyes linger on Sasuke's stiff form before blinking and looking away, but also the lesser known clans. They all contribute to our shinobi forces equally. It's not that these clans have fewer members or are not assets to the village. The only reason they're not popularly known are because they're either newer in their roots, don't have a Kekkei Genkai, which I know sounds incredibly prejudiced, but the common populace is just that way, or they lack clan jutsus to make them truly stand out. A hand goes up at the back of the class, and Iruka halts his speech to nod at the student. A girl with pink hair stands up, looking at her sensei from behind the cover of her fringes. Sensei, so you're speaking of clans like mine. The Haruno clan. Iruka nods at her, a grin breaking onto his face. Exactly, Sakura. You pick up on things quite quick, as is usual for you. Sakura brightens up, looking 10 times less shy, and Iruka continues, now that we're on the topic, Sakura, why don't you tell us about your clan? Sakura glances to her right where Ino sits, purposely looking away with her nose held high. The pinkhead turns back to her teacher with a tiny smile. Sure, sensei. Getting an encouraging nod in return, she continues, the Haruno clan migrated to Konoha sometime after the Second Shinobi World War. My mother says she was only 5 when she came here. She says Konoha became their safe haven, a place they could call home after being on the run for so long. She gives a small smile again and is surprised that everyone's focused on her and her alone. She hurries along. My clan's roots lie in Iwa, but long before our clan actually became large enough to be called one, we were already in the land of fire. Our specialty lies in, understanding chakra. I mean, we are more attuned to chakra, but not like sensors. We can't actually distinguish between the nature of two shinobis' chakra, but we know how chakra works in general because we can feel it better. Chakra in its purest form, that is. My great-grandpa, he was a highly renowned scholar and he's written books on chakra theory, even pioneered research on the subject. but we're not considered a strong clan in general. Iruka-sensei's brows furrow just the tiniest bit and he raises a hand for her to stop. Good job, Sakura. Thanks for providing all that information. Before moving forward, let's address one topic. You said your clan's not considered strong, why so? Sakura clearly hesitates, but when all her classmates wait for her patiently to articulate an answer, she sighs and begins, because the strength of our chakra cores is abysmal. Almost all of us have small, civilian-like cores, and even the strongest of our clan only end up as Takebetsu Jounin. So, we're usually underestimated a lot. Even when we come up with new jutsus, we don't restrict its use to our clansmen, instead making it a public resource. She shrugs. I'm not sure why my clan does that, but having no clan jutsu doesn't help us establish ourselves as a major clan. Iruka-sensei motions for her to sit down, and she does so, prior confidence vanishing once again. That was quite helpful, Sakura. See children, I need you to understand that strength does not lie solely in flashy jutsus or huge chakra cores. Being knowledgeable about a certain aspect of shinobi lives, like chakra or taijutsu katas or even shinobi wear, makes us strong and valuable in different ways. Major or minor, each clan helps the village progress and provides aid to our shinobi forces. So, don't let the narrow-minded thinking of other people affect your judgment. Shikamaru's hand goes up, the lazy student appearing alert for once. Yes, Shikamaru. What about the civilian-born shinobi? Do they have no connections to clans? Like the fourth Hokage, he was an extremely skilled shinobi, but both his parents were civilians. Was it just random? Or are civilians not inherently weak, as we have been told to believe? Iruka throws a tiny smirk at the boy, knowing that the Nara had purposely brought up this topic. Those are some valid questions, Shikamaru. Here's the thing. Civilians are usually civilians because their affinity towards shinobi arts is very low. It doesn't mean they always have small or less dense cores, but it's usually the case. However, there have been many civilian-born shinobi in history who have outshone all the clans, and it's not a one-time thing either. My advice for you all is to never discriminate or have misconceptions about the shinobi who come from civilian families. Take your classmates for instance, Teru can easily beat Ino in taijutsu, despite having no prior training before the academy. The black-haired girl beams at the acknowledgement. But Ino can just as easily trap Teru under a genjutsu. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and though our backgrounds may contribute towards them, they aren't the only deciding factor. Our individual strengths matter, separate from where we're born or whom we were born to. Naruto listens to his teacher intently, for once his brain doesn't wander, and before he can stop himself, his hand goes up. Iruka-sensei seems a bit surprised at seeing his usually inattentive student interested in the class. He purses his lips but calls out to Naruto to speak his mind. It's not like he doesn't like the boy, quite the opposite actually. He's grown fond of Naruto, his endless enthusiasm and determination, but the boy is almost always distracted in class, creating nuisance for his other teachers and pranking people for fun. It gets tiresome after a while, the reprimanding becomes a chore. And then there's the fact that Naruto is the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Iruka knows he's being unfair when he acts a bit harsher towards Naruto than the rest of his class, but he allows himself to let that resentment out in tiny bursts instead of lashing at the boy like his other colleagues. He's wary of Naruto because his treacherous mind seems convinced that Naruto has some hidden malice behind all those smiles, something sinister lurking inside him, and he waits for the other shoe to drop. Sensei. Iruka breaks out of his thoughts and once again finds himself surprised to see Naruto look so unsure of himself. He's standing behind his desk, hands fidgeting with the fabric of his well-worn jacket. Yes. What's the question? Iruka asks, hoping that he doesn't sound as impatient as he feels. I was wondering, Naruto says, looking up into Iruka's eyes now, about my roots. Was Uzumaki a clan? Or the surname of some shinobi? Are there, like, records to go through which can tell me who my parents were? Were they both Uzumakis? Or did my other parent belong to some other clan or family? I just want to know. Iruka stiffens as Naruto rambles and a hush falls over the class. The students realize that this is a rather sensitive topic for the blonde and they'd rather not interrupt this important moment. Iruka walks up to his desk, dropping the chalk gripped in his hand into the small tray and slides into his comfortable chair. He looks at Naruto, who's still pointedly staring at his table. Naruto, you can't access the shinobi archives unfortunately. You're not authorized to, Iruka informs him, trying to be somewhat gentle about it. You might not know who your parents are, Naruto, for a long time. He cringes inwardly upon seeing the sullen look on Naruto's face. In retrospect, it would have been better to hold off on the answer till after the school dismisses, because this is unnecessarily forcing Naruto to be vulnerable in front of all his peers. He wonders if he can salvage the situation somehow and debates whether he should break the unsaid, unwritten rule of not talking about the Uzumaki clan for just a moment before the words escape his mouth of their own volition. I can tell you about the Uzumakis though, if you'd want me to. Naruto looks at him with wide eyes and so much awe that Iruka is taken aback for just a moment. He should have expected it, Naruto, he's been an orphan right from birth. His sense of identity has never been connected to his parentage, and Iruka knows how much this will mean to Naruto to finally have a morsel of knowledge about his ancestry. Really, Iruka-sensei? Yes, please, thank you. He exclaims, failing to keep his excitement at bay. Iruka chuckles but raises a placating hand, not now Naruto. We'll have a talk after class, alright. Right now, we've got some points to cover before I end the lecture. Naruto opens his mouth as if to argue, but thinks better of it. He sits down, a wide smile plastered to his face, and continues to stay attentive during the rest of the class. When the bell goes off, everyone hurries outside, eager to go to their respective homes and rest or train. Naruto lingers in the classroom, awkwardly shuffling on his feet, and waits silently for Iruka-sensei to complete sorting through his lecture's notes. Soon, his teacher stands up with a stack of papers clutched underneath his arm and motions for Naruto to follow him outside with a jerk of his head. The blonde complies easily but doesn't say anything as they walk towards the staff room. So, the Uzumakis, huh? Iruka asks mildly and smiles at seeing Naruto's hurried nod. Alright then. First things first, the Uzumakis were a clan and not a civilian family. Naruto's lips turn downward, were? As in, they're not one anymore. Iruka gives him a sympathetic look that irritates Naruto. Yes. They're not a clan anymore. You see, the Uzumaki clan was one of the founding clans of Uzushiogakure. They were well respected inside and outside the village due to their battle prowess and mastery over sealing. But during the Third War, the whole village was destroyed, wiping away most of your clan. Naruto shows no outward reaction beyond the clenching of his jaw. Who did it? He asks, and why? Their enemies did. During the war, we were allied with Suna and Uzushio, while the other major villages opposed us. There was an invasion of sorts, Iwa and Kiri directing all their forces towards Uzushio, while Kumo distracted Konoha and Suna. We were made to believe that an attack was coming towards Konoha. But instead, we were misled and Uzushio paid the price. Naruto gulps and goes silent as Iruka enters the staff room and adds his load to the pile on his assigned spot. He glances at his student, hoping to see some sort of reaction to that terrible news, but once again, sees none. Why were we never told about this village and my clan, sensei? He asks quietly. Iruka scratches his neck, villages hold their pride in weird ways, Naruto. For Konoha, the falling of Uzushio is a personal failure, one which they don't like to be reminded of, at least not in words. What do you mean? Naruto inquires, reaching out for a chair to sit on. See this symbol? Iruka points at his uniform where a red spiral is stitched onto the blue cotton, it's the symbol of the Uzumaki clan. Naruto shifts his feet and takes a better look at the symbol before darting his gaze on the same spiral adorning his clothes. That's so I've been wearing my clan symbol unknowingly for so long. He mumbles to himself, somewhat revered by the fact but also equally sad. Yes, Iruka says, having heard his soft muttering, it's actually the bare bones of the very first seal created by your clan. Naruto takes in the information given to him then. Iruka provides him with lots of trivia about his dead clan, and there's an ache there, a longing, and he wonders if this is how Sasuke feels like. He soon realizes though that his teacher isn't really telling him things of importance, it's all superficial. Like the color of their hair, and he wishes he had red hair, if only to feel more connected to his family, their features, their specialities, their behavior. But Naruto wants to know. Were they good people? Were they kind and loving? Would they have liked Naruto? Who are those people who escaped that day? Which Uzumakis remain in the nations, roaming and searching for an abode? Unfortunately, Iruka-sensei doesn't have those answers. He knows only so much about his clan, and he tells Naruto as much when the blonde asks those questions. Sorry Naruto, Iruka-sensei says with a strained smile, I'm afraid the information I have about the Uzumaki clan is quite limited. I can't give you any more details. Have patience though, one day you'll be a jounin ya. And then you can get those documents you want. Perhaps even tomes or war records only accessible to the higher-ups. Naruto musters up a smile for him, it's alright sensei. Thanks for this. Looking back, he doesn't know what exactly is making him so angry. Maybe the total lack of anything about the Uzumaki clan or Uzushio from their history textbooks. Or Konoha's incompetence when it came to helping her ally. Or Iwa and Kiri's dirty tactics that wrought destruction at such a large scale. Or maybe the fact that Naruto's always kept in the dark about so many matters concerning himself. He still doesn't know what about him makes him so different from other children. He knows his orphancy isn't to blame. In a shinobi village, orphans were quite common and he's never seen random villagers sneering at a child who's simply walking in the market like they do for him. He doesn't know what's that flow of steady rage that encompasses him internally. He doesn't know why the old man Hokage never mentioned his dead clan to him before. Doesn't matter, though. He's going to find out who he is. As Naruto and as in Uzumaki, whatever that may entail. He goes to sleep with the seal, the symbol of his clan, swirling behind his lids. Quiet anger still rolling through his body in tandem with his slow breathing. He wakes up with a jolt, hand slamming onto his ringing alarm clock reflexively. He rubs his eyes harshly, trying to wake himself up. It's cold, he realizes. Or well, he feels cold. Colder than the night before now that the bubbling energy has subsided completely. He squints his eyes at the sunlight peeking through his curtains and thinks about what he'd seen in his dream that night. Flashes of white, sharp teeth looking at him with disdain. Orange and red fur intermingled with black shaping into the form of something grand and majestic. The feeling of wetness beneath his feet. That's all he recollects, and though it's a weird dream, he's not really bothered by it. There was something undoubtedly familiar about it. Something that made him more curious than wary. Shaking himself out of his inner musings, he hops into the shower. He steps out and quickly dresses himself before making a small breakfast. He ends up burning his omelette, but with enough chili sauce, he finds it tasteful enough to eat. He rushes outside after strapping on his kunai pouches and taming his hair some. Only after he enters the academy does he realize that he's actually early this morning, if the lack of hustle bustle in the grounds outside is any indication. He peeks inside his classroom and the presence of the sleeping Nara inside is expected. He's aware that Shikamaru arrives here with his father, who usually runs early shifts at the cage tower, hence forcing his classmate to get here early as well. Naruto doesn't move inside, but walks in the opposite direction where the academy's library is located. The librarian raises a brow at him as he walks in briskly, avoiding eye contact with the chunin on duty. He eyes the books in the history section, failing to spot anything related to Uzumaki or Uzushio. He double-checks to make sure he's not missed anything and huffs a defeated sigh when he finds nothing. He drags himself to the other sections, just in case. Nothing worth of note catches his eye in the exercise, literary or self-help sections. He continues and groans while shifting books around in the shinobi arts aisle. He coughs when the dust at the very end of the bookshelf enters his nostrils and he blows over the stack of ratty books irritatedly. Inhaling some fresh air, his eyes scan the content on their spines and they light up, impossibly bright, when they read a particular title. Monograph. The Ins and Outs of Sealing Arts by Katsuri Uzumaki. The moment his brain comprehends the title, he grabs the book and dusts it more thoroughly. It's definitely older than his age, worn with yellowed pages and water stains. The ink has merged in a few places, making the kanji indecipherable for those words. Otherwise the thick book is in a good condition, but it's full of diagrams and designs that Naruto doesn't understand, and the preface is full of words that go over his head. He'll need a dictionary if he ever hopes to read this book properly. He makes his way to the librarian's desk with the monograph held tightly within his hands. The chunin eyes him skeptically but stamps the book without a word before shooing him away. He's grateful that the shinobi aren't as nasty towards him as the civilians. When he enters his class again, it's full of people. Listening to Kiba's excited storytelling in the background, he walks down the aisle towards his designated seat. He makes sure to be as discreet as possible while dropping the book in the small slot under his table and looks up to meet Shikamaru's brown eyes, staring at him with something unreadable. Ino's loud voice draws their attention and Shikamaru blinks before looking away, seemingly bored again. Naruto sits on his small dining table and lies open the book in front of him. He keeps a dictionary by his side and a parchment and some ink are placed neatly to his left. He's already gone through the table of contents twice and he flips the page to finally start the first chapter. By the information provided before, he knows that the author of this monograph had been a kunoichi in Uzushio, a jounin who came up with many of the earlier versions of seals he sees today. She'd been hailed as a genius, a marvelous thinker and creator, and Naruto feels like this is a privilege, an honor to have found this book. He wastes no time in reading the fine script on the page. Sealing can be a deceitful little term for beginners. They may think that sealing is related to containment or confinement of something per second strictly. Allow me to provide a simple definition of this broad shinobi art, a crude one, that is. The art of sealing deals with the creation of a certain type of medium that allows the user to forego hand signs and/or verbal proclamations to perform a task using chakra. It may be offensive, defensive or wholly neutral in nature. Sealing does have its roots in quite literally sealing things, primarily chakra, but it's not limited to it. Note. While one may require the use of different materials to assist the seal to actually contain something, the primary necessity for a beginner is only a paper and ink. Naruto grins at reading the last line and turns the page. The chapter covers topics related to what sealing is in general, types of sealing and their uses. Naruto takes all the information like a duck takes to water. He ends up reading only one chapter due to the abundant breaks while reading to look up the meaning of a word in the dictionary, but when he goes to bed, he's content. He's happy with himself. He feels a sort of fulfillment that has nothing to do with a mysterious anger, but everything to do with his own sense of self. Maybe learning the art of seals is his way of learning to be in Uzumaki. His dreams feature an ocean, vast and shiny blue like the painted picture on the book's cover. The horizon doesn't appear out of reach, but something easily attainable like Naruto could outstretch his hand and catch the glowing sun within his palms. Shikamaru stretches his arms, a yawn splitting through his lips as he stands up taking support from the trunk of the tree he was using as a pillow moments ago. He pockets his hands and spots Choji munching on some peanuts while sitting on a swing. They don't come to the park often, but when they do Shikamaru prefers to spend it napping in the shade of the trees. They're blooming today, with light orange and slightly pink flowers. It looks like a huge wreath, light green leaves shadowing the small blossoms. A lazy smile stretches across his face as he walks towards Choji who stands up. "Had a nice nap, Shika?" he asks amiably as both boys walks towards the exit. "Obviously," he replies, "the only place more comfortable for sleeping than this spot is my extra fluffy futon." Choji chuckles good-naturedly, "That aside, Mum's called you over for dinner. Shikaku-san, Inoichi-san and Dad are having their drinking night. Did your mom mention it?" Shika eyes the faint crescent of the moon peeking through some clouds, despite the orange glow spread across the sky. The sun slowly disappears from view at the opposite side, slowly shrouding the sky in darkness. "Yeah, she did," he says, "but this is all so troublesome, man. Why can't we just go to my place and order dinner instead?" Choji pats his back, there. Don't cry, Shika. I'm sure you'll have loads of time to act like a sloth tomorrow." Shikamaru rolls his eyes, somewhat conceding to the point it's Sunday tomorrow after all. They turn around the corner and Shikamaru spots a head full of yellow, bright hair that seem almost alight under the streetlights illuminating the area. Naruto's seated across Sakura, both engrossed over some kind of notebook, whispering about Kami knows what. If not for the absence of food aside from a plate of dumplings where only the sticks remain and the almost academic activity both are engaged in, Shikamaru would have thought that Naruto had finally scored that date with Sakura. He looks at Choji who is also observing the same scene as him. "Wanna go say hi?" his friend suggests and a denial is just at the tip of Shikamaru's tongue, but his traitorous curiosity somehow makes him nod his head in agreement. The two approach the duo and Sakura snaps her head towards them, apparently startled. "Oh, hey," Naruto says when his eyes land on Choji and Shikamaru, having followed Sakura's abrupt movement. "Hi Naruto." "Sakura. What are y'all up to?" Choji asks, offering his open pack of dry fruits to them. Sakura takes a few in her hand gratefully while Naruto replies. "We're just figuring out a few things about this seal." This doesn't surprise Shikamaru. He's observed Naruto enough during these last couple months to note his sudden interest in seals. They only have one class about sealing bi-weekly where Naruto's been an enthusiastic participant lately. Last week, he'd managed to draw a perfect string of swirls to create a fully functional sealing scroll. Their teacher had only given him a dismissive compliment evidently ingenuine and moved on with the class. That's something to ponder on later though. "What's it about?" "The seal?" he inquires, trying to keep his tone casual. "Oh. It's like a chain on a scroll to transmit chakra. To transfer chakra through the long tag or well, an unfolded scroll into an object, though I want to make it possible to do it for another person too." Shikamaru repeats those words in his head, trying to get a grip on the concept, but Sakura adds helpfully. "Imagine a wire. But instead of conducting electricity, it'll conduct chakra particles." "Wow," Choji mutters, awed and leans to have a look at what they're working on. Shikamaru conceals his amazement at the idea, even if he knows that it's a feat not accomplished yet. The concept alone is impressive enough. He tilts his head subtly to catch a glimpse of different commas and diagrams drawn haphazardly across 2 pages. "Sakura-chan is helping me understand how pure chakra behaves normally." Naruto informs them, grinning at the pinkhead, "She's awesome guys. Half the stuff she says bounces off my head, but then she items it down for me so I can understand." Sakura snorts, something she'd never do in class, and makes a few circles here and there on the notebook. "Enough flattery for today Naruto," she says, "besides, it's not me who's doing the main work here. I don't get one thing you've drawn here beyond the very basic symbols. It looks like some traditional art form to be honest." Naruto nods slowly, "It's kind of like art anyway. More precise and meaningful though. Like geometry. Of course, it's more intuition and creativity here. There's no set rules for making seals. As far as I'm concerned, I prefer it this way. The trial and error is how I learn best anyway." Sakura hums, but doesn't add to the conversation. So, Choji says, let us know when you do make this into a seal. It's super cool already. Naruto smiles freely, sure thing, Choji. And you'll have to show me your expansion jutsu too once you master it. I will, Choji promises. Naruto faces Shikamaru then, what's going on in that head of yours? I can tell you're thinking hard about something. Shikamaru blinks and replies honestly, just wondering about why you've picked up on seals so suddenly. Oh, Naruto blinks back, long story. I'll tell you later, maybe. Shikamaru shrugs, giving a tiny nod. I think we should get going, Choji speaks up, Mum's going to go berserk if we get home after dinner is served. Naruto's smile twitches downward a bit before it turns into a grin, get going then. You don't want to keep your parents waiting. But that, Choji starts walking away waving at Naruto and Sakura. Shikamaru trails behind him silently and can't help himself from looking behind at the blonde who's once again scribbling furiously on the sheet, a tiny smile on his face, eyes ablaze. Shikamaru shakes his head. How troublesome. Chapter 2. Mending. Sasuke remembers that night vividly. The moon with a slight reddish hue in the sky, the swirling red of his brother's eyes, the thick sticky red that caked his toenails the next morning when he'd failed to clean them off after stepping into his clansman's blood. He remembers it all clearly, too clearly, and the memories of that single night overshadow all the soft smiles of his brother, the rare pat of his father, and the mellow kind voice of his mother that had once cast a warm glow inside his chest but now only served to constrict his lungs. Sasuke recalls those days when his family was whole and happy and full of life, despite the small rifts making their way into his house. He dreams sometimes of his father and brother talking in hushed tones around the kotatsu while he played in the courtyard. He never sees himself as the one receiving his father's attention. That had never been him. It had been Itachi. Always Itachi. He dreams of his brother telling him some story or other about his academy days, and though his voice was flat and plain, Sasuke had always found those stories riveting from his safe perch atop Itachi's shoulders. But more often than not, he dreams of a katana lined with the blood of his parents, positioned at his neck and the cold, frosty red eyes staring at him as if he's a mere pest, a cockroach left alive not out of love or fondness, but disgust and pity. He hates those dreams. He hates all of them. So he tries not to sleep, not to let his mind linger in the past, and he sets his eyes onto the future. He lies unblinking on his futon and then fights against his drowsiness, and most nights, he wins. He gets up again at midnight when he can't be bothered with the pretense of relaxing anymore and goes straight to the small training field at the end of his clan compound. It's silent except the whispers of the dead, the phantom sounds that Sasuke can't help but hear. It's times like these, when the aloneness is glaring and so obvious that he wonders why he didn't give up this compound. This piece of land that had once been the home of his family but now was only a shell of its former glory. The Hokage had told him that morning, several days after the massacre. Sasuke was seated across the leader of his village with loads of anger and resentment. Because how could this man call himself the Hokage and fail to protect his family, his clan? The Kage though, hadn't so much as frowned at his behavior and taken all his rude answers in stride. Then the man had offered him a place, a safe and quiet apartment just 3 blocks away from the Kage Tower. Promised him that he would get all the support and all the help to get adjusted and settled in. Sasuke had refused vehemently. And even after he'd calmed down a month later, and even after he'd been haunted by the lingering echoes in his clan compound, he didn't regret his decision. Because this compound, these empty houses with the paint slowly chipping away, had been his family's, his clan's, and now it is his to keep. It is a connection, however fickle, to his dead clan, and he prefers it much more than that traitor, that brother that once had been. He pounds away at the logs till they batter and bruise and imagines Itachi there instead, punching with renewed vigor. When he gets back to his room again, it's always sunrise already and he gets him shut-eye before heading to the academy. Nobody questions the increasing bulges beneath his eyes, too occupied in idolizing him as some novelty, a rarity. And he wonders, with no small amount of bitterness about what exactly he'd accomplished by failing to die that night. He always sits beside the window and glares at anyone who so much as glances at the seat next to his. After the first couple of times one of the Kunoichi in training had been stubborn about pestering him, he'd pulled out his kunai that had sent her yelping away. Since then his classmates had learned to leave him be and respect his personal space. Even Iruka-sensei hadn't reprimanded him, but he'd cast this pitying look instead that always made Sasuke grit his teeth. He didn't need anyone's pity. He'd been an attentive kid once. Full of curiosity and enthusiasm and innocence. Now he's got way too many voices in his head to focus on what his sensei says during class. He still listens though. Because he wants to become strong. He wants that strength to someday defeat his brother. But his mind inevitably wanders away sometimes and he looks at the outstretched grass outside detachedly. Flashes of blood and metal and icy gazes return, but something even more hurtful resurfaces in his head. Laughter. Bright and soft and genuine. Itachi's laughter. He'd only ever heard it twice. Once when he was 5 and had tried to mimic his brother's senbon attack with barbec sticks and none of them had embedded into his target board. He'd huffed petulantly and accused the sticks of being uncooperative little jerks while Itachi had watched on from the sidelines. When some stick somehow landed in his hair in a tangled mess, Itachi had laughed and the warm tone and pleasant ring had surprised Sasuke so much he'd forgotten to show his offense when Itachi had flicked his forehead. A second time Sasuke hadn't made Itachi laugh. Shisui had. Only a few months before his cousin had died. Sasuke had complained and complained, pouted and prodded till his brother had finally caved and let him attend one of his training sessions with Shisui. Sasuke had been entranced with their spar and had gleefully obliged when Shisui had offered to fight him. He'd been aware that the older Jounin was just humoring him, but he'd given his best anyway, and when Itachi had ruffled his hair later and said good job, little brother Sasuke had only beamed. Then Shisui had said something witty and nudged Itachi with an elbow and then his brother had laughed again. A short, startled kind but gentle and cheerful anyway. Now these memories only served to remind Sasuke what once had been and what he'd never have again. Shisui was dead and so was his brother. He didn't know this Itachi Uchiha, whoever he was, with hatred in his eyes and blood on his palms. His brother had been kind and polite and patient. His brother hadn't been this ruthless killer. Yet, Sasuke knows deep down that Itachi was the murderer of his clan as much as he'd been his brother. It only fans the raging flames of his anger towards Itachi. Sasuke's always been a fighter at heart. Fighting for his father's approval. Fighting to get his brother's affections. Fighting to step outside his brother's shadow. He'll fight in the future too. He'll fight his brother because he knows that the dead eyes of Itachi will be 10 times better than the chilly frostiness that shroud them now. Sealing chakra into an inanimate object is a tricky endeavor. The process itself requires the user of the seal to be proficient in the skills of seal activation and mediation. Especially so when the chakra is highly volatile and/or the object isn't well suited to hold the chakra being stored in it. Rudimentary seals usually necessitate the user's constant attention to work perfectly. Remember that the symbols you draw onto a page aren't mere symbols. When a seal is created, the sum of these individual symbols has a result far greater than the effect of one comma or swiggle alone. Seals, as I like to call them, are semi-sentient. Symbolism is heavily applied in seals like a wavy line used for a water storage scroll or a sharp bolt to contain a lightning jutsu. Do not forget that seals are temperamental and as a beginner, controlling advanced seals to work the way you want them to will be an uphill battle. The following are the 3 Cs of chakra sealing, inanimate, that will allow you to understand the process in its basic format. 1. Channel intent. 2. Coax cooperation. 3. Control transfer. Take all my advice with a grain of salt since I'm but a simple human with limited experiences and the tricks that work for me might turn out fruitless for you. Naruto absent-mindedly eats some toast with butter and jam smeared on it. His attention is focused on the 5th page of the 3rd chapter of this book that's teaching him more about sealing arts than his sensei at the academy ever could. He hadn't noticed before, but reading this some of his failures with seal activation makes sense. Last week, he tried to activate a seal that repaired tears in paper. He knows it's completely unnecessary, given that paper is a very common resource, especially so when they're heavily surrounded with forests. But his aim was to mend the tears of important documents or fragile parchments. Seeing the state this monograph is in may or may not have contributed towards Naruto's invention of this seal. While activating the seal, however, he found that it didn't work. His chakra output was perfect, the symbols drawn were all distinguishable and well meshed, and yet nothing happened. Now Naruto knows what he'd done wrong. Instead of focusing his intent on commanding the seal to repair the tear, basically coaxing his chakra to follow the order laid down by the symbols, he'd instead focused solely on expending the right amount of chakra. In his defense, the seal required an amount of chakra too tiny for his massive reserves to give out with ease. Naruto takes another bite, only for his teeth to meet flesh. He snorts upon realizing that he'd been too engrossed to notice he'd eaten all his breakfast already. Glancing at the clock tells him he has about 20 minutes to reach the academy, and he reluctantly closes the book after laying out his handmade bookmark between the pages. Time to get going then. It's been going on for a while now, Shikamaru muses. Even though the blonde and pink-head across him think they're being subtle with the exaggerated eyebrow movements and ridiculous hand gesturing. It's not like they'd get in trouble for talking either. Iruka-sensei is writing their sparring routines on the board and is such paying no attention to them. That leaves only one reason why the two would do the comical hand signing. They want him to notice them. Possibly ask them what they're up to. Well, Shikamaru will happily go along with it. He's curious after all. He clears his throat just like his father does, and both of them immediately look towards him, twin expressions of fake innocence plastered on expertly. "What's up?" he asks. "I noticed the excessive hand signaling and thought I'd make sure y'all didn't get jinjutsu'd." Naruto throws him a sheepish look while Sakura grins and tells him, "Thanks for the concern, Shikamaru. But we're totally fine. Just thinking about something." And oh, Shikamaru knows a bait when he hears one. He falls for it willingly just this once. "Yes. And what's that about?" "A seal," Naruto says, barely concealing his excitement. "Remember the chakra transfer chain we were working on?" Shikamaru remembers. Of course he does. But it's only been a little over a month, and if Naruto's already managed to form that seal, well, Shikamaru will have to change all his preconceived notions about the blonde's minimal intelligence very soon. "I do," he replies. "Are you done making it?" Naruto's snort surprises him, as if. "The seal's far too advanced for me to make at the moment." He pauses and looks at Sakura, who gives a tiny nod, and then he's facing Shikamaru again, intense blue eyes zeroing in on him. "But I did manage to make a draft seal, a precursor to the precursor of the final seal, so to speak." "That's nice," Shikamaru says somewhat lamely, but hurries to get to the point. "I'm assuming you need me to do something for you then." He expects a request to maybe look over the seal and point out flaws or holes. Maybe ask to help Naruto in the making of the final seal itself. Intellectually help, that is. "Yes." Naruto says brightly, "You know how to manipulate chakra externally, right?" Shikamaru blinks, thrown for a loop. Yes, he can do that, but he wasn't expected that question or the implications of it. He hums in agreement. "My clan's justice required." "Awesome. Then you can help us test this seal." Sakura leans her elbow on his desk with an eager expression. Naruto's not any better, and Shikamaru wants to say no. That there's no way in hell he'll spend his leisure time expending his chakra instead of lounging at his usual spot for cloud gazing, but his curiosity rears its ugly, very very ugly head inside his mind and cheerfully threatens him to comply or it'll plague his mind with horrors of unanswered questions. He nods his head slowly, careful to keep his face bored. "Okay. I think I can manage that." Sakura smiles at him, not the shy one she only wears, but something bolder and wild, and Shikamaru can't help but wonder how he'd never noticed this side of her. But then he turns to see Naruto's brightened visage, his brilliant grin, and he knows his answer, even as he finds himself smiling back at the two. Because he doesn't think anyone can remain reserved in this exuberant blonde's presence. Sasuke glances at the afternoon sun, swiping the sweat off his brow. The rays are mild today, even outside the whole shade of the trees. He's training at the public grounds today, one that's safely tucked at the edge of Konoha's boundary with rough dry grass and an overabundance of dummy logs. Usually no one bothers him here, except the occasional chunin or jounin that come to exercise, but they have the good sense to not approach him. Today's no different. Or so Sasuke thinks, right until the moment three familiar faces enter the space, one of them talking animatedly with the other two. Sasuke goes right back to his furious punching and kicking and pays them no mind. If they have even some vague semblance of intelligence, they'll leave him alone. For a long while that's exactly what they do. Not even the pink-headed girl who Sasuke knows had liked him once spares a glance towards him. Instead the three huddle up at the far end of the ground, a long scroll neatly unfolded with the blonde sitting at its side by the middle, hands on the paper, while the Nara sits on the ground and listens attentively to the Uzumaki. That surprises Sasuke. He wasn't aware that Naruto is capable of having enough knowledge about seals to be able to impart it. He can't hear them, but the Nara's intrigue is almost palpable, and even Sasuke finds himself somewhat curious about what they're up to. He easily restrains his inquisitiveness under layers and layers of rage and single-minded goals and keeps up with his katas. At some point he senses an output of chakra from the area the trio occupy before it just vanishes. A single stream of chakra coming out before getting swallowed up by the scroll acting as some sort of black hole. Not a single trace of it remains. That's unusual. Then there's a faint blast and the smell of smoke, and the next moment Naruto is marching towards him with a purposeful look on his face. "You." The blonde says when he's finally in front of Sasuke, a thumb pointing towards the other two staring dubiously at them. "Come with me over there." Sasuke just raises a single eyebrow, but Naruto doesn't budge, hands on his hips and the determined gleam set in his blue eyes. "Why would I do such a thing?" "Because I said so." Naruto says childishly, "Now hurry up, we've not got all day." Sasuke catches Sakura's eyes, who just smiles sheepishly at him, and Shikamaru, whose face betrays nothing. He shrugs, unbothered, and turns back to his log to continue his onslaught of attacks. Naruto stands there tapping his foot impatiently before huffing in annoyance. "Don't ignore me," he says irritatedly, "just come over, okay? I'll explain everything." Sasuke doesn't entertain any thoughts of relenting and proceeds to ignore the blonde with faint traces of amusement when Naruto turns more and more agitated. But then Naruto's face changes and it takes over the same grin Sasuke has seen on the blonde before he does a prank on Mizuki-sensei and then Naruto's behind him. Arms lock under his own and with one rough, strong pull Naruto is hauling Sasuke away from the log and Sasuke lashes with a back kick which the blonde somehow dodges even as he tightens his grip on Sasuke. The Uchiha grits his teeth, finding himself in white instead of Naruto and in a petty attempt to get free, he pinches Naruto's arm viciously. The blonde yelps but holds strong regardless and Sasuke hears him snicker in his ear. "Let me go," he says quietly because shouting never helped his father, "or I'll injure you so badly you'll be limping till you're 80. And okay maybe that's a bit too much, but Sasuke really is annoyed and making exaggerated threats is somehow therapeutic. "Sure," Naruto says cheerfully, still dragging him to their little base of operations, "you can do that just after you're done helping me." The moment they reach the other two, Naruto lets go of him and Sasuke tries to do his best to appear as dignified as he can, even as he smooths out the wrinkles on his t-shirt from where Naruto had gripped it. From the twitch on Sakura's lips and faint amusement in Shikamaru's eyes, Sasuke guesses he's failing splendidly. All the more reason to maim Naruto then. "What do you need my help for?" Sasuke asks, surprising himself by being the one initiating a conversation. "You can do nature transformation for your chakra, right?" Naruto inquires, absently removing another scroll from his pouch. "I can," Sasuke confirms, "why?" Naruto turns toward Sakura who jumps into the conversation. "Naruto wants you to test out his seal. Basically, you need to feed fire-type chakra into the opening of the seal. We tried to do it with Shikamaru's chakra, which is mix of yin and yang that he uses for his clan jutsu. But there was an error in Naruto's seal. He says that the symbols for pure chakra and fire chakra are very similar and while describing the kind of chakra the scrolls meant to store and transfer, he exchanged the two symbols. It didn't work for Shikamaru, but since you can actually release fire nature chakra, it should work just fine." Naruto gives her a grateful smile and Sakura beams in return. The small interaction is almost sweet. Sakura is adept at theory and can explain and exchange facts which Naruto can't. Meanwhile Naruto boosts her confidence and treats her with respect, something Sasuke is certain Sakura doesn't receive very often. "Yes. So you got all that, Sasuke?" Naruto asks. Sasuke nods at him, "I think. But I've got a few questions." Naruto settles down comfortably and unrolls the scroll, waving a hand at him to go forward with the queries. "What does this scroll do?" "It's meant to take chakra inside from one end and then transfer it along the chain drawn across it and store it at the other end." Sasuke eyes Naruto as the blonde scrutinizes the scroll, sharp and intelligent eyes scanning all the symbols, and he knows that this scroll is Naruto's work, however difficult it may be to wrap his mind around the fact. "Why the extra chain? Don't chakra storage scrolls already do the same thing? Take chakra and store it." Naruto smiles faintly and Sasuke joins him on the ground along with Sakura and Shikamaru. "It's only a testing seal. The main task is the transfer of chakra through the chain. I intend to remove the component that stores the chakra at the opposite end, instead add a matrix so that the chakra can be transferred to another object that's kept on it or is in contact with it or another person under similar conditions." Sasuke's eyes widen just a bit. Human object chakra transfer is extremely rare and human-human chakra transfer is almost unheard of. The only case of the latter is in the medical field where medics allow healing chakra to intrude into the patient's body, but it never enters the patient's chakra circulation. How Naruto worded it, Sasuke thinks it sounds like chakra transfusion, something not even the Sanin Tsunade has been able to accomplish. "Oh," he says a bit stupidly, failing to keep his doubtful tone at bay. Naruto doesn't seem to mind though as the blonde only nods at him before smoothing out the scroll and adding a little tomo, a straight line here and there. "Perfect," Naruto mutters before turning to him, "Come on then, place your palm right here." Sasuke does as instructed and Sakura stands up behind where Naruto's bent and Shikamaru looks on with interest. "Once I activate the seal," Naruto begins, "you need to give out your chakra after internally transforming its nature type to fire. Right now my own plain chakra will power the seal and the seal will do its job. I need a bit more time before I can make the user's chakra itself power the seal without a mediator's assistance." Sasuke shrugs, accepting the piece of information and gets to the task at hand. He feels his fiery chakra building beneath his palm, senses it as it enters the scroll, and travels through the chain at near instant speed before it seemingly vanishes and Sasuke can't sense it anymore. The minute passes as Sasuke keeps pushing his chakra through the scroll before Naruto raises a silent hand, motioning for him to stop. Sasuke does so and lifts his palm off the parchment just like Naruto. The blonde sits still for a moment, staring blankly at the other end of the scroll, where the chakra is stored supposedly before he blinks and a huge smile overtakes his face. He turns towards him excitedly. "It worked." He tells Sasuke rather redundantly, "Oh Kami, it actually worked." Sakura seems equally delighted. "Good job Naruto," she says, "the chakra behaved just like you intended it to." Naruto turns his attention to her and the two share a brief high five before the blonde looks at both Sasuke and Shikamaru. "Thanks guys," he says, genuine gratitude lacing his words, "you've been great help. Let me know if you need anything, I'll definitely repay y'all." Shikamaru waves a dismissive hand. "It's nothing. Besides, this Wasfan," he scratches his neck awkwardly. "Fuinjutsu is interesting." Sasuke agrees, but he doesn't forgo the small debt Naruto owes him. He's learned to never refuse any advantage, and though he doesn't think Naruto can do anything particularly beneficial for him, it won't harm to have his help if he ever requires it. Naruto smiles slightly at the Nara before turning guilty all of a sudden. "Sorry for that explosion," he says to Shikamaru, "I should have been more careful with the seal. It could have been worse and I don't know you could have gotten injured." Sasuke can't help but feel a bit amused at the blonde's extreme sincerity. He's sure Shikamaru doesn't know how to handle so many blatant emotions either. He's always noticed Naruto, somewhere in the background, lingering in his periphery with grins and smiles and cheer and joy, but also a heavy sorrow clinging to him. It feels odd interacting with Naruto after ignoring his existence for so long. It's not as bad as Sasuke thought it'd be. "It's okay Naruto," Shikamaru says, rolling his eyes, "I didn't get hurt. Neither did you. And experimentation always has its risks. When I agreed to help you, I knew what I was in for." Naruto nods uncertainly, not sure if Shikamaru had accepted his apology or simply dismissed it before Sakura tells Naruto to pack his stuff and that the sun's already setting so he'd better hurry up or Sakura will leave him behind. And that's that. Sasuke stays in the ground even after the three leave. He stays there till midnight before heading home, and when his head hits the pillow that night, his thoughts linger towards Naruto's seals and Shikamaru's lazy posture and Sakura's green eyes. He won't realize until much later that this night had been the first of many when his dead clan or Itachi hadn't plagued his dreams. The Amanakas are largely referred to as mind readers in Konoha. Not only because they're able to literally read minds through their unique invasive jutsu, but also because they're instinctively more capable of reading people, their signs and tics, and discern abnormalities and variations in their behaviors. So it's no wonder that it's Ino who first notices the changes. They're so subtle that she's sure everyone else in her class full of idiots must have missed them. The changes being Sakura's shift in personality. Ino had been Sakura's first not true, she corrects, friend, before boys and jealousy had turned them into rivals, bitter and petty. So Ino knew how Sakura had been a shy little thing, hiding behind two huge bangs, shielding herself with bulky tomes straight out of the archives, avoiding confrontation and complying without fuss to follow her lead. Not anymore though. Oh, she's still as book-smart as ever, poring over some book or the other every day. She still want to subtly solve the issue instead of tackling the problem head-on, but the shyness, the insecurity. It's all gone. Not hidden. Not suppressed. But overcome with silent confidence which just shows when Sakura walks towards her seat, sure of each step and always content to expose her forehead after tucking her bangs behind her ears. Ino regrets not being there to witness this change, but she regrets not being the cause of it more. Ino stares when Sakura hits Naruto playfully over the head and when she says something witty that makes Shikamaru snort. Ino stares when Sakura chews on her pencil and hums distractedly as Naruto rambles in her ears or when she glares at Kiba when Akamaru sits on her book. Ino stares and sometimes Sakura stares right back, too many emotions swimming behind pale blue and bright green eyes before both turn away simultaneously. Each wondering when this invisible boundary between the two would cease to exist. Then one day Naruto approaches Ino, failing to seem nonchalant and says softly. "Hi Ino." Ino frowns at him, "What do you want?" Naruto brushes off her rudeness and continues in the same soft voice, "Sakura chantics about you." Ino stiffens because she knows what's coming next. Accusations maybe, anger even. She has no doubt that Sakura must have told Naruto her friend because that's who he is now about the hurtful comments Ino had made, about how she'd acted and broken their friendship when they were only 7 years old. But none of that comes out of Naruto's mouth. Instead, he smiles at her, a tiny one, and tells her about the snippet Sakura had shared with him. Of open fields and pink headbands. Of promises and lilies and sunflowers. Of two girls sharing a small bond, one helping the other. He tells her what Sakura told him. None of the vitriol Ino had spewed and which Sakura had spewed right back but of days before that. When they'd had a sleepover at Ino's place and she'd lectured the pinkhead about the right way to sow a seed and take care of roses. About the time Sakura had dragged Ino to her clan compound and her mother had taken one look at the two and decided they'd be good for each other. Ino doesn't cry. She doesn't show even a single emotion on her face because she knows what will happen if she does. If not a sobbing mess, she'll murder Sasuke for coming between their friendship. She knows how unfair her thoughts are, but she can't bring herself to care. So, Naruto says at last, subtly glancing at Sakura to make sure she doesn't see this interaction, she doesn't think ill of you, Ino. At least not anymore. Ino bites her lip and glares at her desk, prompting the silly piece of wood to give her an answer. What should she do? Reconcile? Ignore? Make an effort to rebuild the friendship? Turns out, it's Naruto who makes the decision for her. The blonde takes one look at the empty seat beside Sasuke, then at the empty seat beside Sakura, where he usually sits before nodding to himself and trudging toward Sasuke. Ino pays no mind to the argument that breaks out when Sasuke realizes who's invaded his peace and marches resolutely toward Sakura. Sliding in the seat next to hers, Ino ignores the way Sakura's eyes widen or the knowing look Shikamaru gives her. "Hello," she says, happy that her voice doesn't waver and resists the urge to throw her arms around Sakura and telling her you can keep that stupid Uchiha, I just want our friendship back. Sakura looks at her and Ino doesn't squirm under the scrutiny of those green eyes and when Sakura smiles at her, Ino dares to hope. "Hi," Sakura replies carefully. And it'll take many months, maybe a year before the two mend what's broken, but they will do it with small, stolen conversations and agitated apologies and equally guilty confessions. There'll be no accusing, no pointing of fingers. They won't yell, they won't say words that they know would hurt the other. They won't look at boys and give unfair ultimatums. They're 11, not as immature as they'd been when they were 7, so they will snatch the bomb that'll soothe their ache and they will do it together. But mostly, they will respect their friendship and they will respect each other. But for now, Sakura simply turns away and Kiba continues to tell her his tale of how Hana dyed one of her Ninken's hair pink and Ino is fine with that. She can wait. She will wait. Chapter 3. Beg, borrow, steal. He is a quaint little boy, Tenten thinks as she sees Naruto grinning at his teacher after sticking some prank seal on Iruka-sensei's chair that glues his butt to the wood. Really, she's sure that Naruto doesn't even realize the talent he possesses when he makes such complicated seals with a casual flick of his wrist. The older Kunoichi in training knows how difficult it is to make even the most basic of seals her weapon summoning, depends on how good she is with them after all. So, she can only watch in awe as this boy, just a year younger than herself, goes ahead and decimates most of the primary rules of sealing art and succeeds at it. There's a buzz going around the academy lately. Of a young, yellow-haired boy. He'd been a troublemaker before, or that's what Tenten had been told about him. That this boy, Naruto, with sunshine smiles and goofy grins, isn't as airheaded as the teachers thought him to be. That he's actually a weird experimenter who isn't afraid of exploring and discovering the sealing arts in their most dangerous forms. Of course, others don't see him that way. They see his pranks and an unnecessary paper-mending seal and give him a nod of acknowledgement. Simply saying that yes, it's a nice thing that the boy is doing something productive with his time, but no recognition of how truly remarkable his sealing genius is. But Tenten isn't one of them. She sees the seal that sticks someone's ass to a chair and knows exactly the kind of intricate details Naruto must have incorporated to have the seal triggered when human warmth comes in contact with it, knows the 3-layered array that makes said seal invisible till activated, and yet she doesn't know how this 10-year-old managed to form such a complex seal from scratch. Maybe, it isn't really that impressive after all. Many Chunins can easily replicate that seal, but for someone with no formal education in the discipline, Naruto's work must have been all intuition and self-study, a concept Tenten is well acquainted with. She, herself, is an amateur seal maker and has gone through several incidents of failure and success alike in her seal creation ventures, but she's aware with a tinge of envy that Naruto's understanding of seals far surpasses her own. And that's the very reason she's spying on him as the blonde fumbles through his shinobi training but shines like a beacon in his few ninjutsu practicals. Like any true Kunoichi, she doesn't stalk someone alone. She's got Lee with her. He's her backup and coverstory. If some teacher happens to catch them out of class because of course they're bunking their Konohan history lecture to carry out this information gathering mission, she'll just smile sweetly at them and inform them that she is simply taking her friend to the infirmary because he got his ankle twisted. Which Lee had anyway, Kami knows what a training freak this guy is. This is highly unethical, Lee whispers, shifting on his feet as if contemplating whether he should bolt away the next second, intruding on someone's privacy isn't right, Tenten. Come on, Lee, Tenten rolls her eyes and stands on her tiptoes to get a better view of Naruto's hand that's currently moving fluidly to draw something onto a page, we aren't observing him in his home. It's a public setting, so we aren't watching him do anything private. Lee frowns, a war waging inside him. On one hand, it is pretty fun to sneak away from class and watch what the younger students at the academy are up to. On the other hand, his strict morals dictate that this isn't appropriate behavior but then his eyes land on a pink-haired girl that he's sure is Naruto's friend. She is talking to the Nara fellow, something shining in her green eyes, and the two seem to be engaged in some sort of intellectual debate. Lee leans forward then, previous ethical arguments forgotten and just watches as Sakura and Shikamaru discuss the pros and cons of some obscure chakra artifact they'd come across a book in the library. He gets so absorbed in their conversation even when he can't hear them that he startles when Tenten huffs beside him. "I don't get it," she complains, he's 10. He's had far less experience with drawing seals than me, yet he's able to grasp the theory better. Look, he's not even drawing on paper anymore. He's carving on the wood. Lee just nods at her, unsure of what is so special about scratching on the desk. Tenten groans, propping her head on two elbows placed on the windowsill, completely unbothered if the students inside spot her head. "You don't get it," she mumbles moodily, "I've been trying so hard to etch seals on my weapons so I can summon them remotely, but even after learning under my father's tutelage, I've yet to master basic seals on paper. At this rate, I'll never to be able to catch up with that boy. He's already moving to different surfaces to draw seals. How do I learn all of this, Lee? My dad's only average at the sealing arts and there's no sealing master in the village to learn from. Books in the library just suck, they don't even explain how seals work most of the times." Lee frowns at Tenten then at Naruto who is currently showing a boy with two funny looking spirals on his face how to hold the brush properly so that the strokes are more precise. "I think," he says, and slowly his lips widen into a grin, "I think you should ask Naruto-kun to teach you." Tenten opens her mouth as if to protest, but she snaps it closed after giving this notion some serious thought. It isn't exactly a bad idea. There's some potential here. She could definitely ask Naruto for tips, even though she'd rather learn from a proper seal master, but it won't hurt much to gain some insight on the topic from an amateur such as herself. She hums, eyes narrowed on Naruto's oblivious frame, "I guess I could try doing that." "You saw them, right?" "I did," Shino mutters to Kiba, "what do you think we must do?" "Confront those stalkers," Kiba says, hitting his fist on his palm, righteousness practically oozing off of him. "Those damn seniors think they can do anything and get away with it." "No," Shino says calmly, "I'd rather we continue observing and intervene when we're certain that they're also after Naruto." "Also?" Kiba's outrage forgotten in the wake of his confusion, "What do you mean also?" Shino manages to convey his disappointment through the minutest of inflection in his monotonous voice. "They're not the only final year students who have tried to seek out Naruto. 2 weeks ago, the seniors had received some Fuinjutsu assignment and they tried to pawn off their work on Naruto. He refused and then the seniors got into a scuffle with Choji, Shikamaru and Sakura. When Hikari-sensei found them all, bruised and dirty, Naruto came up with some clever lie that ended with the final years being sent for detention, and Naruto and his friends were let off with some generic lecture on avoiding conflict." "Whoa," Kiba blinks, "this is the first time you've spoken so much, Shino." Shino shrugs and turns his gaze towards the girl with twin buns, eating her lunch by the high wall surrounding the academy. "Boy." A cheerful voice cuts short their conversation and Kiba turns to meet Naruto's blue eyes. "Kiba. Iruka-sensei's calling you inside." Kiba stuffs a rice bowl in his mouth and chews hastily. Gulping, he gets up after thumping Shino's back in friendly farewell. He meets Naruto right outside the classroom door and is surprised to find that the blonde isn't about to move inside with him. "You're not coming in?" Naruto shakes his head, "Apparently I didn't fail the test today, so no extra lectures for me. You enjoy your time with sensei, alright." Kiba grumbles about the unfairness of his situation and glares at the cheeky grin Naruto gives him. The blonde has always been his partner in such sessions, both of them have been at the bottom of their classes for years now. Shinobi theory just bores Kiba, and for Naruto he can't grasp it well, so the duo always ends up failing in their weekly assignments, which lands them in yet another boring class to fill the words on their textbooks into their underused heads. Iruka-sensei's words, not Kiba's. So the fact Naruto has improved in academics is as astonishing as it is annoying. Extra classes are fun when there's Naruto to chat with and cause chaos with, but not when Kiba actually has to sit alone and focus on whatever Iruka's teaching, lest sensei chew him out for his inattention. "There you are, Kiba," Iruka gives him a polite smile when he enters. "Let's start revising the names of Wind Country's daimyos today. The first, as we know." Kiba looks despondently at the window as Iruka drones on and on about these political figures he's absolutely not interested in, and he makes sure to stick his tongue out when Shikamaru glances his way with a smirk on his face. Later, when Iruka grills him about the topics mentioned, Kiba tells sensei that Akamaru really has to pee and that if he isn't allowed to take his dog and leave right that instant, Iruka will probably have to mop the floor himself. Sensei sees through his trick but doesn't stop him, on account that one can never be too careful. Kiba, in turn, smugly tells Hana about how he outsmarted his teacher that weekend. When the time comes, Tenten is tempted to chicken out, but doing so will make her look stupid in front of Lee, so she swallows her fear and walks resolutely towards Naruto. Talking to a junior can't be that difficult after all. Naruto's currently eating some raw carrots out of his bento, engaged in pointless banter with the pink-haired girl and the Nara. When Tenten enters his frame of vision, he halts his tirade about something mundane and gives her his full attention. "Hello," she extends her hand awkwardly and ignores the suspicious look the other boy throws at her. "I'm Tenten, 1 year your senior here." "Hi," Naruto shakes her hand without any hesitation and beams at her. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Glad to meet an older Kunoichi aspirant." Tenten pulls her hand away to rub at her neck in an awkward gesture her father has tried several times to break her out of. "Nice to meet you too, Uzumaki-san." Naruto frowns at her, as if offended. "Call me Naruto please." Tenten nods uncertainly and is glad that Lee steps in and introduces himself enthusiastically. Soon, the blonde and his friend engage in a conversation about push-ups that utterly bores Shikamaru, and he simply lies on the dirt ground and shuts his eyes. "They're quite enthusiastic, right?" The pink-haired girl remarks. "I'm Sakura Haruno, by the way. In case you were wondering." "Sorry," Tenten says with a short laugh, embarrassed that she'd forgotten to ask the girl her name as proper social etiquette would dictate, but yes, these two are on the same wavelength here. "You're not here for asking Naruto's help like all those other assholes, right?" Tenten coughs nervously, but decides that if she's going to get herself humiliated today, she's going to do it on her terms. "Actually, I am in fact here to ask for his help. In Fuinjutsu. You see, I use scrolls to summon different weapons during combat, and I've been stuck a stage of improving the method for quite some time. I thought I'd ask Naruto for some tips, you know." Sakura hums, as if considering something and then picks up a book Tenten hadn't noticed before and starts reading it. "Why are you talking to me then?" she asks. "Go on, ask Naruto. He's right there." Tenten sees no flaw in that logic and taps Naruto's shoulder to draw his attention. Lee takes a look at her and understands that he has to make himself scarce now. "Naruto-san, as enlightening as this chat has been, I'm afraid I must go and strengthen my body, lest my energy dissipate with talking alone. I shall see you soon. Call me Naruto." The blonde yells but waves his hand enthusiastically at Lee. Later. He then turns towards Tenten with a brilliant grin, and she feels quite stupid about worrying that this boy, this bright-eyed, seal-obsessed, little kid, would insult her or refuse to help her. So, she starts talking and doesn't stop till she's spilled all her sealing-related woes to him, with Naruto occasionally agreeing with her struggles. By the end, both students are seated on the grass, complaining about the extremely runny chakra-infused ink of all things. "It's so blotchy, right?" Naruto says, shaking his head. "I can barely keep my symbols from becoming one big spot of black." "I know, right?" Tenten agrees. "Once my kunai melted because two tomos just merged to become the fire mark. That ink needs to be improved." Naruto nods his head seriously. "We should try finding a better version from another village, maybe. Or we could make our own." Tenten's eyes brighten. "I'm always up for some experimentation." At that, Shikamaru's eye opens up lazily and he drawls. "Infusing chakra in fluids is extremely dangerous. You two will end up either blowing something up or your ounces. Just get the stuff the Hokage uses." Naruto blinks and leans backwards on his elbows to look into Shikamaru's eye. "Think you can get us some of that? You know, borrow some from your father, maybe." Shikamaru snorts, closing his lid again and drops his head on the grass. "Yes, sure. I'll steal some chakra ink so you can make more of those complicated drawings." "Ah, you're the best, Shika." Naruto declares before looking at Tenten who openly grins at him. "Now let's solve those doubts of yours." The break gets over shortly after and Tenten promises to meet Naruto after the day's classes are over. He's given some useful tips to her already that just came naturally to him, and Tenten marvels at the absurdity as well as the simplicity of the advice given. "If you gotta seal something," he'd said, "it's better to take the container to the something rather than taking the something to the container. Don't apply the lid from the start," he'd continued, "first let the object enter the box and then seal it shut." That's where the concept of incomplete seals came from, and Tenten takes the information and stores it in some corner of her mind, convinced that it will help her better seal her wide assortment of weapons one day. There's a smile on her face throughout her remaining lectures, and when she pulls Lee with her towards Naruto's class at the end of the day, the boy doesn't protest. They meet the group of younger students. This time there's a chubby boy and the Inyazuka kid there too, but Tenten doesn't mind their company as long as she gets to speak about sealing with Naruto. Before she realizes, she's already a part of this ragtag group of students all passionate about one thing or another, all held together by some invisible thread that Tenten thinks is Naruto's presence, but never voices it out loud. The next day, she meets them similarly outside the academy, and that's the day she brings out the topic of instant object displacement. "Teleportation, you mean?" Naruto wonders. "That's how you want to summon your weapons?" "Yes," Tenten says, "I'll carve the seal on a metal plate that sticks to my gloves or something. It's more efficient than carrying a bulky scroll around." The scroll's easier, Shikamaru says, stealing a chip from Choji. As far as space-time Fuinjutsu goes, only the 4th Hokage has been able to incorporate it in his original jutsu. No, Sakura says, creasing her brow in concentration, the summoning scrolls for animals, that's teleportation, right? Shikamaru nods. I didn't include them because their sealing arts are quite different than ours. No one's been able to decipher the patterns used, and they're believed to be made by the first generation of these summoned clans themselves. Their knowledge was never documented, so it's all lost to time. Oh, Naruto says, but maybe there's something there we can understand. I mean, sealing isn't about language or tradition. It's about finding the right pattern and chain, and that fluidity. I mean, we can at least try to reverse engineer those scrolls, right? You should go for it, Choji says when no one's quite ready to encourage Naruto in this crazy endeavor. There's no harm here anyway. Shikamaru quickly agrees because beyond the impossibility of the task, his curiosity reigns supreme, and Tenten follows suit. Sakura isn't any more difficult to convince and Kiba just nods along, unsure of what exactly they're planning to do here. Now to get our hands on a summoning scroll, Naruto wonders aloud, any ideas? I've got one, Tenten says, it's called crime. Shikamaru groans, I'm not stealing that too. Sage knows I'm having enough difficulty getting that damned ink of yours. Please, Naruto says, and it's really unfair how Tenten and Sakura cast those innocent, puppy-eyed looks at him and how Choji nudges him to be a good sport. Any protest dies on the tip of his tongue and he bangs his forehead lightly on the bark of a tree. I hate this. I hate every one of you. That's exactly when Lee falls right on top of Shikamaru, having lost his balance from where he was standing atop a tree branch high above. The laughter that ensues on Shikamaru's expense somehow makes the genius feel light and gross and oddly happy, and that's the first night he comes extremely close to beating his father at Shogi. Make your seal device. This is where I start moving forward with the proper application of sealing fundamentals you've learned so far. Let's start with a shift in narrative. Up until now I've told you that seals are to contain, carry, or mold chakra or an object. Now, I'm telling you that seals are tools. Seals are anything you want them to be. They're devices that will perform the function you've defined for them to carry out. Essentially, the functions of seals are quite limited if you make them by the books. This is why the basic 3 tasks of seals, as I'd mentioned before, were listed as containment, transfer, and molding. Mastering the aforementioned tasks using seals will serve to form a proper base for the next 3 functions, which are detection, conversion, and release. In this chapter, I shall guide you towards making a fire nature chakra detection seal that works around a radius of 5 meters. Make the foundation of your matrix with all variations of water symbols. Start forming an incomplete containment seal and remember to build outwards to inwards. Once you're certain that the framework of your seal is somewhat stable, recreate the detection matrix at the very center using the figure provided as a reference. Add the component pop or smoke as basic indicators to go off when the water within the seal decreases as a result of contact with the fire chakra. Complete the incomplete seal by adding a key that opens when you provide chakra to power the seal. That's it, if you've managed to follow these steps, congratulations. You've made your very first seal device. Naruto sits on a sturdy tree branch, feet dangling below him as he draws the seal from the instructions provided. In the same ground, at the opposite side, systematic and continuous thuds of kicks and punches on wood fill the silence. Sasuke practices till his knuckles bleed and his legs feel sore, but he hones his skills till they're perfect, till there are no holes in his stance, till he can kick someone on their face within a second of warning. He's not bothered by Naruto's presence at his sacred training spot anymore. He's usually left alone, and as long as he gets to do his outrageously rigorous training in peace, his grumpiness doesn't show. So, he's sufficiently annoyed when Naruto calls out to him today, and after contemplating excuses to not help Naruto, he decides that it'll just be easier to humor the blonde than argue with him. It's something about expending fire nature chakra again, and he considers the fact that he's nothing more than chakra producing factory for Naruto nowadays, before realizing that he isn't really offended by that. Just a little, Naruto raises his hand in the universal gesture for a pinch, a tiny amount only. You're awfully demanding, Sasuke informs Naruto, but expels just the right amount of chakra with much difficulty nonetheless. Naruto waves another seal in the area surrounding Sasuke, and the Uchiha is about to question whether Naruto has lost his mind when there's a soft pop sound that comes from the seal. The blonde jumps and whoops in delight. Thank you. He says to Sasuke, and before the other boy can give him a reply, he dashes out, exiting the grounds entirely. Weird, Sasuke says to the empty air. Sakura is reading fundamentals of ninjutsu when Naruto taps at her bedroom window. She tries to shoo him away by a dismissive wave of her hand, but he taps even harder, and with a sigh, Sakura drops her current red to indulge in whatever mad idea Naruto has come up with this time. "Welcome," she says with a raised brow when Naruto hops inside and jumps on her bed with his sandals still on. "Thanks for dirtying my sheets. I do just love to wash them so much." "Don't mention it," Naruto says. He adjusts his position so there's room for Sakura to sit and the girl gives up on subtly teaching her friend some manners and resorts to aggression. "Boy." Naruto lets out an affronted yell when Sakura tugs off his sandals harshly. "You could have just told me to remove them." Sakura throws the pair of footwear out the window and smiles sweetly at him, sitting on her bed. "Actions speak louder than words, Naruto." "Asshole," Naruto mutters, "I've got a question for you." Sakura nods, related to that seal device stuff. "Yeah," Naruto pulls out a paper from his jacket and steals a pencil from her holder. He draws a seal, and Sakura recognizes it as the one he'd made last week to detect fire chakra. Here, he points to the large circle. "This acts as stabilizer, quantifier and the thing that changes in some fashion due to contact with the chakra." Sakura tries to scrutinize the seal, but apart from a few odd symbols for moisture and wet, she's unable to identify the other parts. "Cool," she says at last, "what's the question?" See, so far all my seal detections have been for a specific chakra nature. I want to make a seal that detects a cluster of ambient chakra now. Meaning, something that can tell me where the chakra density is higher or lower than normal. It could be a trap detector, since most traps are laid out with the help of some chakra. Or it could help us spot natural abnormalities. That's a nice thought, and it really is, but are you sure the seal would even be able to catch that? And wouldn't the seal need input about the normal chakra density to compare the volume of chakra you put in it to begin with? Naruto's brows scrunch up in confusion. "Okay, yeah. Didn't think of that. But seal can still spot a cluster of chakra particles just a high density then. Right." Sakura thinks for a bit before confirming, "Yes, that could still work." "Alright," Naruto is still enthusiastic despite the setback, "so what should the stabilizer be? For fire it's water, for wind it's fire, etc. But what stabilizes chakra itself? What overpowers chakra? Or which opposite of chakra so to speak?" Sakura smiles because she's got an answer to this. Chakra is everywhere. It's in everything. It's energy itself. So think Naruto, what can balance chakra? Naruto chews the inside of his cheek, scratching his head in confusion. It's everywhere. So something that has no chakra will stabilize chakra. He don't get it. Sakura gets up and walks to the bookshelf that covers her entire wall. She pulls out a thin book barely 50 pages and shoves it in Naruto's hand. "The answer's vacuum, Naruto. Create a vacuum and it'll have no chakra. If the seal comes in contact with chakra." "Wow," Naruto interjects, "oh Kami. This is so simple, the vacuum won't remain a vacuum when there's chakra filling the space, so there'll be a change in the stabilizer that'll make the indicators go off. And I can set a threshold to make sure only a certain density of chakra is indicated." Sakura beams at him, happy that she's able to help him in some way. "Thanks." Naruto gets off her bed and throws his arms around her. She gladly accepts and returns the hug. In a flurry of movement Naruto's out the window again. She laughs as he stumbles on the road, trying to find his sandals she'd thrown and goes to bed with after completing another chapter of her book. Sakura enjoys helping people and now she understands this with a clarity she hadn't possessed before. Chakra has always been Lee's enemy. It never cooperates with him, never bends to his will or moves the way he wants it to. Molding or yielding chakra is probably the only task Lee can carry out through his limitless hard work and determination alone. It stings a bit when another classmate of his can easily form a bunch-in with just a week of practice while he struggles day and night for months on end to even get a wisp of chakra to behave. He's accepted it by now that ninjutsu will never be his to learn. That he will never make tornadoes of fire, wind and waves of water or earth. He's known this for quite some time and it bothers him less as each day passes and he focuses on honing his body and increasing his strength. Rarely, someone from his class looks at him with pity or laughs at his inability to mold chakra. Those days used to be plentiful before, but Lee has proven himself to be a diligent student who makes up for his lack of talent in ninjutsu with his boundless potential in Tai. Sometimes, his sensei will pick him out, narrow her eyes at him and ask. "Tell me Lee, what natured attack is best suited to counter an earth-based jutsu?" Lee doesn't go back to his painstakingly memorized chakra theory or the lines printed in neat script on his textbook. He doesn't think at all, in fact, or hesitate. He simply grins and says my kick will be more than enough. Sometimes, he looks at his peers with fascination as they transform into the Hokage's visage and wonders if he'll have to disguise himself the old-fashioned way on spying missions. Other times, he asks the caretaker at the orphanage if he can take a peek in her personal library and the woman, an old kind lady, smiles at him and sneaks him into her private quarters. He rifles through the tomes and pulls out any graphic-filled book on taijutsu. He sits and stares at the different diagrams and skillfully sketched images of different katas and fighting styles for hours. And when his eyes droop and he falls asleep on top of the book, the lady ruffles his hair and gently drags the book from under him so he doesn't accidentally drool on it. He doesn't feel upset about his disadvantage anymore. He doesn't even see it as one. While everyone around him focuses on practicing ninjutsu, he utilizes that time polishing his taijutsu. He doesn't doubt it that one day he'll accomplish his goal of becoming a renowned taijutsu master. There's another boy like him too. He's also passionate about taijutsu like Lee, even better than him in fact. His name is Niji Hyuga and Lee has sweared to defeat him so that he can be the best at this combative art. But it's a perilous task to outdo Hyuga. Niji's clan is the best at taijutsu after all. Lee understands this every time he spars against Niji and gets thrown on the ground under 5 minutes. Even with his speed and sharp muscle memory, even with the 10 hours of practice he puts in to improve himself each day, Niji is better than him. The Hyuga has some edge over him that he can't point out. Maybe it's the strong gentleness of Niji's strikes or their precision and aim, maybe it's the focus and strategy that he incorporates in his fights, maybe it's his innate talent itself showing its true colors. Whatever the case, Lee will weaponize his hard work till he's beaten Niji and proven himself to be a capable taijutsu user to anyone who doubts him. However, for this special mission he's assigned himself he needs someone to train against. Tree logs can only take him so far. He needs a responsive and strong opponent who can challenge him and push him further. Niji refuses to even have a proper conversation with him, so Lee can't just go up and ask the guy to be his spar buddy. No, it has to be someone Lee can actually approach without denial being the only answer he'll receive. This takes him to Tenten, the only friend of his he actually trusts from his class. Spar against you? The Kunoichi in training repeats, baffled. Yes. Lee nods enthusiastically, I believe we both will greatly benefit from such an arrangement and you'll make a great opponent for me. Tenten snorts, shaking her head in disbelief, Lee, you literally break every single of my bones if we sparred beyond 2 minutes. I'm no good at hand-to-hand combat. I rarely win against any other girl in our class matches. Lee frowns, realizing that fighting against Tenten won't give him the experience he's looking for. Who should I go to then? He asks her, pardon me for being so boastful, but apart from Niji, I'm the best at taijutsu in our class. Niji won't give me the time of the day and the rest won't provide any substantial challenge for me. What must I do to get better? Tenten hums in thought as the two come to a halt at their usual meeting place with Naruto and his friends. You can ask Kiba, perhaps. He's pretty good at fistfights. Lee considers this as they wait for the rest of their group to arrive. It doesn't take long for the band of juniors to enter the little grassy nook at the back of the academy buildings. Hey. Naruto chirps with a wide smile. You won't believe what happened in class today. Tenten chuckles lightly at the blonde's excitement and nods at Sakura in greeting. Oh? What happened? Naruto quickly seats himself on the ground, Shikamaru following suit. Kiba climbs on the tree along with Sakura, who grumbles about the dirt clinging to Akamaru's hair. We were having some boring lecture on genjutsu types. It wasn't boring, Sakura interrupts with an eye roll which Naruto easily ignores. And Shikamaru and I were peacefully napping in the back. Then there was the shriek, okay. Like someone was absolutely terrified and saw a ghost or something. I woke up and this idiot, he points at Shikamaru, currently lying down with his hands tucked under his head, still remained asleep. Apparently, Shino wasn't feeling well today. Poor guy was sick since yesterday, but we had an important test in the morning, so he came to the academy anyway. He's got all these insects living in him cause he's an aburum. Iruka-sensei said that the insects can detect if their host is unwell and it makes them jittery. In an attempt to get help for Shino, they got out of his body and started bothering everyone in the class. The shriek that woke me up was Ino's. Almost 24 of Shino's Kakashi just landed on her body and she went absolutely crazy. Naruto laughs a little, remembering the chaotic scene from his classroom. Sakura huffs under her breath and Tenten smiles contently at the story. She likes how included she feels in this small group. Then, Naruto continues, the insects started hoarding Sasuke and Kami. Was that funny? I had no clue he was scared of them. I think today was the first time I saw him look so disheveled. He was going to hop out the window. Kiba interjects from the tree, I swear I saw him crawl his butt up the windowsill. Shikamaru snorts at that, you weren't any better. Don't think I didn't notice you using Akamaru as a shield. So you weren't sleeping. Kiba accuses with a pointed finger. Stop pretending and being all sneaky. Shikamaru simply smirks and gives no response to his dog-loving friend. Sasuke. Lee's voice draws everyone's attention, as in Sasuke-uchiha. Yup, Sakura confirms. That's the one. Oh, Lee says, a faraway look on his face. Tenten's eyes widen in realization and she thumps his back in celebration. I think you found your spar buddy then. Lee breaks out of his trance and grins like an idiot, much to the confusion of Naruto, Sakura and Kiba. Shikamaru's napping once again. Yes. He says cheerfully, yes, I have. Sasuke sits at his usual spot, relieved that Naruto hasn't occupied the seat next to his. Ever since that day a few weeks ago when Ino had suddenly hoarded Naruto's original seat, the blonde had made it a point to pester Sasuke by being his desk partner. He goes through his mental checklist, adding things he needs to do after going home. For one, he's out of vegetables, and though he knows only 10 or so recipes he can make something edible out of, most of them require greens in them. So he'll have to visit the market at some point before nightfall. Another thing he's got to do is work on his flexibility. The new stretches they'd practiced today made his legs incredibly sore, and he can't have that. His body needs to be in its best condition for him to control. He'll have to. Uchiha-san. Someone interrupts his train of thought, and a boy with big eyes and a cheery grin drops in the seat next to his. The guy's haircut is decidedly ridiculous, but Sasuke isn't going to point it out. Do I know you? Sasuke asks, voice bland as usual. As a matter of fact, he does know this boy Rock Lee from his idle observations. Naruto, Sakura and Shikamaru seem to be well acquainted with Lee if their several escapades together that he'd noticed were any indication. However, this does not mean he's going to treat Lee familiarly. No, Lee replies. But if all goes well, you soon will. If what goes well exactly? Lee straightens up and Sasuke notices Naruto standing by the door, vigilant towards the corridors that led to their classroom. Evidently, the blonde is involved in whatever this senior was up to. Lee gets out before he awkwardly clears his throat. He starts again. Rock Lee of Konoha Academy, grade 6, formally request you Sasuke Uchiha to be my opponent, spar buddy and overall rival in Taijutsu, for the mutual development and improvement of us both. Sasuke raises an unimpressed brow despite being entertained by Lee's grandiose form of proposal. Are you even any good at Taijutsu? Sasuke asks, looking Lee up and down. He doesn't fail to notice the bandages wrapped around Lee's knuckles not unlike his own. You clearly don't look very competent. Lee doesn't take any offense, instead his grin widens. I am the second best in my class. He informs. In order to get to the top, your assistance would be greatly appreciated. The Uchiha thinks about it some. The offer is definitely presented to him rather unconventionally, but it's not unappealing. He's always wanted someone to test out his strength against someone who could go toe-to-toe with him. His classmates, while providing a good fight from time to time, do not share a drive similar to his. He knows how hardcore his training regime is, and that's the only reason he'd never bothered to look for a training partner. He didn't think anyone could match his level of seriousness and resolve. I will accept, Sasuke says finally, on 2 conditions. Lee visibly brightens and urges him to continue. 1. You will never call me Uchiha-san. Sasuke is fine, and 2. You'll have to quieten down when we talk, you're too damn loud. The older boy makes a disgusted face, appalled that the Uchiha would try to curb his enthusiasm with such a request. It takes him more time than it should to agree to those outrageous terms. His personality wouldn't ever allow him to let that energetic attitude go, but if it meant he would get better at Taijutsu, he was willing to make a small sacrifice and tone down his excitement. Shall we meet again at the training grounds you used this evening? Lee inquires as he stands up. Fine, Sasuke says with a shrug before narrowing his eyes at Lee. But how do you know which grounds I frequent? Lee gives him a sheepish look, or Naruto may or may not have told me. Sasuke restrains his urge to scream at the blonde and stiffly nods his head so Lee could leave him alone. Fortunately, the other boy does exit his class owing to the fact that he has his own lectures to attend and Sasuke's peace is restored. On his way out though, Lee high-fives Naruto and shouts a thank you before leaving. Naruto then abandons his position by the door, no longer required to act as a guard for Lee's intrusion in their class. As he walks past Sasuke, he gives the Uchiha a cheeky grin. You're gonna enjoy yourself with Lee, the blonde informs him. He's an awesome guy, you know. Sasuke doesn't scowl though he most definitely wants to. Instead, he stares at Naruto and says. Don't you dare give information about my training spot to anyone else. I'll never help you with your stupid seals otherwise. Hey. Don't call my seals stupid. Naruto defends, but there's mirth in his eyes, so Sasuke knows he's not offended. And I won't. With Lee, it was an honest slip of tongue. Sure, Sasuke says, unconvinced, but he lets the matter drop and goes back to staring at the trees outside. That evening turns out to be more productive than all his academy classes, and Sasuke marvels at the strength behind each of Lee's individual move. He loses half the spars, but the sting of defeat is entirely lacking. He learns how he's more reliant on his left arm both for blocking and punching, and knows how detrimental it can be against an enemy like Lee who is both powerful and analytical. Who follows his instinct as much as he follows his mind. It's well past dinner time when both boys stop their training, drenched in sweat and satisfied with the aches in their body. Each match had been more grueling than the one before, but neither Sasuke nor Lee had complained or asked to stop. They'd mutually decided to call it a day when the shrouded moonlight wasn't enough to illuminate the grounds, and both had stumbled around, trying to attain some sense of their surroundings in the dim brightness. "Thank you for sparring with me." Lee Whisper shouts in a well-intentioned attempt to abide by Sasuke's condition, though the Uchiha finds it more jarring than his usual loud rambling. "No problem," he mutters as he picks up his water bottle and kunai pouch, strapping it on. They walk towards the exit in companionable silence, each going through possible changes they should make in their regime to strengthen their weak points. It's before they part ways that Sasuke looks at Lee and nods his head, his gesture of silent acknowledgement, and says, "Thanks." He ignores the way Lee's eyes widen and turns around, breaking into a light jog. Lee watches his retreating back with a soft smile, pleased with himself for having approached Sasuke that afternoon. He's certain that rivals or not, he definitely wants to befriend the Uchiha. The boy is stoic, but he is also kind, and Lee can easily see that. "Did you get it?" Naruto asks the moment Shikamaru enters his usual cloud watching area. The Nara lazily walks towards the blonde, hands tucked in his pockets. When he reaches Naruto, he pulls out one hand, and a small glass bottle filled with a black liquid comes out with it. "Yes," he says and stretches his shoulders. "Oh my god," Naruto holds the inkwell with reverence etched on his face, because this isn't just any regular ink. No, absolutely not. It's the permanent kind with the perfect consistency that the Hokage uses to sign documents of utmost importance. "Shikamaru," he whispers, eyes still glued to the bottle. "You're absolutely incredible, you know that." Shikamaru sits beside Naruto, gaze fixated on an idly moving cloud. "I know," he drawls, "committing petty crime is apparently my forte. Who knew?" Naruto grins, placing the ink gently on the stone steps beside him and throws his arm around Shikamaru's neck. "We still have to get the summoning scroll. How about I be your partner in crime for this one?" Shikamaru shrugs off Naruto's arm and lies down. "Absolutely not. You're as subtle as a sledgehammer. I'm not getting caught because of you." Naruto pouts, leaning against the wall. He disagrees with Shikamaru's assessment. He can totally pickpocket someone if he tries hard enough, but he's not about to argue with his friend. Okay, he acquiesces. "Just get the scroll by the end of the month, please. Tenten's graduating 2 months hence, and we really want to see if the summoning scrolls can provide any insight on teleportation." Shikamaru frowns a bit before his face goes blank again. Unfortunately for him, Naruto notices it since his attention had been on the Nara this whole time. "What's on your mind?" the blonde asks mid-lie. The Nara stays silent for a bit, deciding whether he should respond or not. Finally, he speaks up. "The thing is," he sighs. "I doubt I'll be able to get the scroll. The summoning contracts of major animal clans are inside the Hokage's office safe. Very well protected. The scrolls that are unique to ninja clans aren't easily accessible. I was planning to ask my dad for our clan's dear summoning scroll, but then he'd question me about it and poke and prod till he would inevitably find out how I stole the ink from him. It's too risky. Our best bet would be to file a request to the Shinobi Resources Department asking for a summoning scroll of any generic chakra-using animal and see if the seals used are decipherable. I know for a fact that the major clan animals that made the first summoning scrolls shared their knowledge with any animal clan that wished to work with ninjas. So no matter the summons the scroll is for, the seal should be more or less the same." "Oh," Naruto blinks, trying to process the information just provided. "That's too bad then. We can't put in that request until we're part of the Shinobi Corps. Tenten can do that once she's genin, but we wanted to improve her current method before she went on missions." Shikamaru turns to his side, elbow on the ground and face on his palm. He hums in thought. "I think we know someone who can get us a summoning scroll. You'll just have to convince him." "Really?" Naruto's excitement returns full force. "Who is it?" Shikamaru's lips curl upwards. "It's Shino." Hiruzen Sarutobi reads yet another letter of complaint from the citizens inhabiting the west of Fire Country. The shinobi stationed in their village for protection are apparently too lax and unbothered, and they're worried that if bandits were to attack their home, the ninjas wouldn't be able to fight them off. He writes the same old spiel that reassures the people that shinobi, however incompetent they may seem, are more than capable of defeating normal bandits. He's just about to stamp Konoha's emblem on the envelope when there's a knock on his door. He glances at the clock and sighs at the late arrival of the person he'd been expecting 2 hours ago. "Come in," he calls out nonetheless. Kakashi Haddock steps inside his office with slow and deliberate strides. Without asking for permission, the man sits in the chair across from Hiruzen, pulls out his orange erotica novel, and starts reading it without an ounce of shame. "Pleased to see you're punctual as ever," the Hokage remarks with a shake of his head. "Thanks," Kakashi replies. "Good afternoon, by the way." Hiruzen completes the stamping process and throws the envelope on the coffee table to join the steadily growing pile. "Afternoon," his response is exasperated. I need you stop reading that book right this instant, or I will pass a decree that no shinobi is allowed to wear facemasks at work. Kakashi merely raises an eyebrow, aware that his cage wouldn't ever do such a thing, but he obeys regardless. Placing his book face down on the table, he slumps into the chair and waits for Hiruzen to inform him why he's called Kakashi for this meeting. "Thank you," Hiruzen says pointedly. "Now then, let's start. I won't beat around the bush. I'm here to assign you to another long-term mission, not unlike the ones you carried out a few times during your Anbu career." Kakashi doesn't let his thoughts show in his expressions, which remain neutral. "Cool," he says. "What's the mission?" Keeping an eye on Naruto Uzumaki, the old shinobi states. "Through the recent verbal accounts of the academy instructors, it has come to my notice that Naruto has acquired an interest in sealing arts. He's been learning and practicing, which is all absolutely fine. There have been no complaints against him. My only concern is that he's gaining information through a source he found in the academy's library. I don't want to hinder his growth, given that seals is something that comes so naturally to the boy. I just want you to make sure he doesn't learn about the seal placed on him and doesn't mess with it in any way. Naruto may be proficient in the sealing arts for his age, but he lacks the responsibility that would prevent him from performing truly dangerous experiments. One tweak in his seal and you know the consequences will be dire." Kakashi nods, fully aware of the gravity of the situation. It isn't like they're in immediate danger, but the threat that lingers if Naruto keeps gaining knowledge about seals and the possibilities caused by such a scenario is truly significant. "How long?" he asks. "Till he becomes Chunin." Hiruzen replies, placing his arms on his table. "You're planning on making me his Jounin sensei, aren't you?" Hiruzen cracks a small smile, astute observation, as ever Kakashi. "Good job." Kakashi rolls his eyes at the man. "I will fail him if he doesn't pass the bell test with his team. No exceptions." Hiruzen stares at his subordinate intensely before remembering that Kakashi has never been intimidated by his authority. So he replies. "If you fail him, you'll still have to shadow him when he's sent back to the academy. Which means another year of no high-stakes mission, which means more boredom in your life. Now unless you're a masochist, I don't think you'd do that to yourself. Would you?" Kakashi gives him a eye smile, overly sweet yet incredibly sour. "Good to know you've yet to go senile," he says and grits his teeth for getting caught up in such a situation. "I appreciate the pseudo-compliment." Hiruzen pulls out a sheet of paper from his drawer. "Read through your mission statement and other details. You will have to accept this mission, no excuses. I've made the deal very sweet for you. You'll get your normal salary, even though the only thing you'll do for the next year is be an instructor at the academy." When Kakashi steps outside the cage tower, it's with a particular brand of sulking unique to his own self. He grumbles under his breath, not the least bit happy with how the Hokage had decided to ruin his peace. But somewhere, in the depths of his mind where the horrors of his past stay carefully buried, he feels apprehension at the prospect of interacting with the son of his sensei. He has no clue the type of person Naruto really is after the first few years. The blonde resembled Minato too greatly, and looking at him became painful. So he'd stopped spying on the kid, and though on some days he regrets it, today isn't one of them. He's curious too. To maybe get to know Naruto, the food he likes best, the activities he enjoys most, his friends, his habits both good and bad, to maybe hold a conversation and finally see Naruto as Naruto, instead of the son of Minato-sensei and Kushina-san. However, Kakashi isn't ready for these changes. But he'll find a way to adapt and cope, like he always has. "Ah, Shino-kun." Hinata draws the attention of the boy towards her, who had been previously hyper-focused on following the trail of an ant under his desk. "Yes, Hinata-chan. What's the matter?" I think Hinata bites her lip, darting her gaze behind Shino and then back at him. "I think Sakura-san is calling you." "Is that so?" Shino mutters, turning his head to see the pink-haired girl waving her hand grandly in invitation. He gets up and walks towards her, wondering why she couldn't have simply approached him instead. He's 2 steps away from her desk when Naruto's excited yell draws his attention. "Is that a ladybug? It's so cute." Shino watches from the dark haze of his glasses as the blonde points exaggeratedly at an insect, which is in fact a ladybug. He knows for a fact that they inhabit the central park of Konoha, and he's never spotted ladybugs in the academy grounds. Which means that Naruto had brought one to the classroom solely to act surprised at its presence. Odd. "Hey Shino." It's Sakura who greets him with a nice smile. "Hello," Shino replies, a little confused by what's happening. "Did you need me for something?" Sakura keeps smiling, but she also tries to subtly glare at Naruto, as if giving him a cue to do something. Shino waits patiently for the weird duo to stop being weird, and that's saying something coming from the resident insect host. "Ladybug," Sakura says stupidly, pointing at the insect again. Naruto walks up to them, looking incredibly sad. "Sakura, I don't think he's impressed." Shino raises a brow, but the effect is ruined by his glasses. Was I supposed to be impressed that you stole a ladybug, placed it on your desk, and then recognized what insect it was? When you put it that way, Naruto scratches his head, it sounds incredibly stupid, huh? Sakura groans, it took us 3 hours to actually catch one, you know. Atlas gives some reaction. Shino continues to stare at them blankly. Naruto throws his hands in the air, fine. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Shino, we need you to do us a favor, and you can't say no. That's very demanding of you, Shino replies flatly. Puts me at a great disadvantage. Nevertheless, I'm curious about what favor you might ask, so go ahead. Tell me. Could you please get us an insect summoning of your clan? Any will do, like even a caterpillar or something. Naruto shuffles on his feet, giving him an uncertain grin, hoping that he would agree to do the favor. Shino looks between Naruto and Sakura, and their expectant gazes put a kind of pressure on him to not let them down. Why? He asks finally. This is a very odd request, I must admit. It's for one of his sealing adventures, Sakura says, waving a vague hand in Naruto's general direction. Nothing that'll get you involved, don't worry. Well, not beyond the initial help Atlas. Shino shrugs then, already having considered the downsides of carrying out the request, which aren't many. Okay, I'll do the favor. But in exchange, I would like to be filled in on what the scroll will be used for. Why, you ask? I'm an inquisitive person by nature, and knowledge of what will happen to the scroll seems like a fair trade for providing said scroll in the first place. Is that acceptable? Naruto gives him a jerky thumbs up accompanied by a lopsided grin. Yes, totally. Thank you, Shino. The insect user nods slightly and without any verbal farewell, turns and walks back towards Hinata. Well, that went well, Sakura says, amused by that little interaction. Yup, Naruto simply agrees. It's a little past midnight when Naruto finally makes a breakthrough. He's been trying to improve his chakra transfer and storage seal since morning, and only now has he been able to tweak it enough so it's more efficient. For one, the seal can now be powered solely by the user without a mediator's aid. It can also be used for any nature chakra or even pure chakra in general. Naruto looks at his creation with pride and places it neatly on his desk under a paperweight. He sighs as he lands on his bed and rolls his head side to side to get the stiffness out of his neck. He's a little sleepy, but not much. Seals never bore him and he's always interested and awake when he's studying them or creating them. A month ago, Sakura had pestered him to make weekly schedules so he could keep his studies and training organized. He'd been dismayed by the task of actually planning what he did, but after a rocky start, he'd found the scheduling helpful. Especially so, because he absolutely sucks at managing his time otherwise. According to this week's to-do list, he has to read another chapter of the monograph, but this seal had kept him occupied the whole of Sunday, and now it is way past his bedtime. He stares at the book almost always kept at the bedside table now and decides that his drowsiness isn't overwhelming and he can surely manage reading a page or, well, several before he sleeps. It's the halfway point today, page 250 of this 500-page book. It's not something Naruto would take months to read, but since he's experimenting after each concept he learns, the reading of the book has been a slow process. He's also had to refer to many recommended books mentioned here and there in each chapter, so he would actually be able to understand the references made. He turns the pages till he's on the right chapters and starts going through its content. Sentient chakra sealing. Remember when I'd said seals are something I consider semi-sentient? Following a similar idea, I am now telling you that even chakra has the ability to be sentient. It sounds bizarre and almost supernatural, doesn't it? Because chakra, primarily, is non-living and doesn't respond to a stimulus like we do. It isn't conscious in the true sense of the word. While these characteristics of chakra are true for most cases, exceptions do exist. The only exceptions to this otherwise universal rule are creatures we call the tailed beasts. Don't be fooled by that, beasts, despite having bones and flesh, do not share any components that constitute our bodies. They're beings made purely out of chakra and chakra alone. They're capable of thought and they're capable of movement. They're sentient, intelligent and skilled. Owing to these traits of the Bijuu, sealing them is basically sealing sentient chakra. There are two ways to go about this. A. Sealing the chakra in an object. B. Sealing the chakra in a human. While the former is what I approve of, I predict the latter method becoming more common due to its advantages. I will refrain from expanding upon the second method given my personal distaste for it, but I have no such qualms for the first one. Sealing sentient chakra in an object is much like creating a barrier seal where the walls of the barrier are simply the surfaces of the container used. The material of the object should be sturdy, capable of withholding stress, and unaffected by corrosive chakra. The seals placed on it will be numerous, each individual seal fulfilling one of the following tasks. 1. Reinforcing the strength of the container. 2. Channeling continuous intent to contain the chakra. 3. Barrier seal. 4. Filtering mechanism to dilute the corrosiveness of the chakra. 5. Shock absorption, given that the chakra will most definitely act in volatile manners. 6. Illusion for normalcy. It's good to fool the consciousness of the Bijuu so it doesn't realize it's trapped. Note. Point 6 is optional given the difficulty of tying in a Jinjutsu seal with the other essential seals. The matrix that brings all the seals together must be a stabilizer. Each chakra being has an inclination towards one nature type. A yawn reminds Naruto that his sleepiness has come back full force and if he persists, none of the information he reads will actually get processed by his head. He grudgingly places the book back in its rightful place and pulls up his blanket after shutting off the lights. Closing his eyes, his thoughts linger on what he's just read. The term Bijuu isn't exactly new to him. He's sure he's seen it in the Shodai's biography they'd studied in 4th year, but they hadn't been told what the word meant. Now knowing that their chakric entities create a certain amount of awe towards them within Naruto. He wonders what they're like, their thoughts, their actions, their mannerisms. How they look like, what their voices sound like. He sleeps with comical images of dragon wings sewn on the body of a horse as his imagination of a Bijuu. There's a distinct stream of amusement that lingers in his mind and Naruto doesn't have the faintest clue of its origin. But just like the tingle of raging chakra, this feeling that isn't his has a familiarity to it and so he shrugs it off and falls into peaceful slumber. Chapter 5. Discovering. The detection. Shino's a disciple of routine. He likes drawing up schedules and following them till all the tasks on his checklist are complete and he's silently thrumming with the satisfaction of achieving the goals he assigns himself. He enjoys the planning part a lot. It occupies his brain in ways other things don't. The mind maps, flowcharts and spider webs visualized by his head keep him organized always. It's usually why he never misses a single assignment given to him or gets late to any important meetings or scheduled trainings. That's not to say that he lives his life robotically, it's just more systematic than any other 11-year-old. He removes 3 hours a day to dedicate to his hobbies. No one who looks at him can tell that he enjoys taking strolls in the park so he can subtly chase any butterflies that catch his eyes. The few close acquaintances he's had so far because the level of familiarity calling them friends would suggest has never been there for him will be astonished to know that he's a fan of art. He likes borrowing his mother's pointed brushes sometimes and snatch a random piece of paper to draw whatever comes to his mind. Most of the times it's all very geometric, stiff in a way that he thinks beautiful art isn't supposed to be. Maybe it's the compartmentalizing of his brain that causes this. His thoughts are so complex yet so linear that what he produces on paper has the same systematic quality to it. He doesn't like it one bit. Instead, he loves the mess of colors that Aburam clan's shrine displays. It's centuries-old art drawn by the first few artists of Konoha. Most were Aburams, but some were from outside their clan. Freelancers who were paid to decorate their praying quarters. It's a lovely place, Shino thinks. With beautiful murals embellishing the bare white walls, it's like seeing the art come to life. The blues of hydrangeas and hyacinths and lobelias leaves him breathless sometimes and the oranges of a sunset painted as a spectacle seen through the transparent petals of skeleton flowers after a shower send him in a state of peace that even his extensive planning can't. He goes to their shrine every weekend, usually alone, and sits inside with legs folded beneath himself. He never prays, he doesn't see the point of it but just stares at all the exquisite artwork. It's his muse and yet he never manages to replicate any of the happiness and cheer of floral paintings on his makeshift sketchbook. It's all sharp-edged triangles and unmalleable lines. He despairs over it sometimes, but it's never all-consuming because even though he may not consider himself a good artist, he knows he's an excellent insect farmer. It comes with the territory of being a member of his clan and with that, he's also a budding entomologist, a fact that burns pride within himself if he bothers with such emotions. His Kakashi are his family, plain and simple. They live, breathe, sleep with him. He protects them and they protect him. He may be their host, but this is a symbiotic relationship, one where he benefits as much as they do, and when he names each individual Kakashi, he doesn't feel embarrassed by it. It's upsetting when they die, but he's aware of every time a new one's born too, and it's a sensitive balance, the constant births and deaths, but as long as Shino takes care of himself and his chakra, his insects will never completely die out. They'll be with him as long as he lives, and they're the kind of companions he never wants to lose. The Oplethi think he's stoic. Unapproachable, silent, always assessing and judging. He's some of those things, he can honestly admit, but Hinata tells him that he's actually a pretty friendly guy behind his too huge jacket and glasses. He doesn't really agree with her, he only interacts with her because she's someone who understands his need to remain silent, but he doesn't voice it out loud. Nevertheless, people's perceptions of him and their general quite irrational fear of his insects usually prevent them from ever seeking him out and conversing with him. At least not in his close proximity. Only a few bold ones or stupid ones, Shino muses in the safety of his head, come talk to him. Kiba's one such person, and another's Naruto. He usually stares at them coolly till they get embarrassed to be the only ones talking and exit their one-sided conversations with as much awkward dignity as they can. That's how it goes until that weird day when Sakura Haruno calls him out. He accepts the duo's proposal because, much like Shikamaru, he's got an inquisitive streak as wide as the Cage Monument. The task is quite easy, he finds. One frank conversation with his father grants him a summoning scroll for ants, and he's content with how things turned out. His father, though, appears oddly intrigued by his request, but like any other Abiram, he doesn't pry to get answers out of Shino. He enters the academy a week after he makes the deal with Naruto, a small black scroll tucked securely in one of his numerous coat pockets. He's ready with his end of the bargain. Time to ask Naruto to deliver his. Ordering me to attend a get-together with your friends. Shino echoes Naruto's words, for once feeling extremely out of his depth. The boy gives him his signature grin, swinging his legs from atop the desk he's currently made his perch. Of course, he says, like it's completely in his rights to order Shino around. You're coming to our usual meet-up place, the dango shop in the market. 6 in the evening, don't be late. Sakura raises her head, finally keeping the huge book she'd previously been buried under, and looks at Shino with impatience painted as a tolerant smile. Just agree already. Naruto's not letting you go until you do. Shino keeps staring at them, but Naruto seems unfazed by it today. Well, weren't you the one who wanted to know what I'll use the scroll for? The blonde raises both his brows in an attempt to make Shino feel stupid. Yes, he says, but I assumed our information sharing talk would occur in a quiet area or perhaps an empty classroom. Meeting your whole group of friends was never an option. Now it is, Naruto insists, jumping down the desk with a purposeful spring and looks at Shino resolutely. Whether you like it or not. Oh, I don't. Shino thinks but doesn't protest any further. He knows the stubbornness that Naruto possesses. To reason with him is like trying to move a mountain with the strength of finger, futile and pointless. So Shino saves his energy and simply decides to never show up when the time comes. His lack of denial doesn't mean his automatic agreement after all. But Sakura's not taking any chances, so she narrows her eyes at him. We're coming to pick you up at 5:30. Be ready. Naruto is more than happy to jump on this train, absolutely. No need to dress formally, by the way. Why would I dress formally? Shino asks, wondering whether he even owns such clothing. He's never really seen any Abiram in anything other than baggy jackets and pants. I don't know, Naruto scratches his head. Those Hyugas seem to always wear very uptight clothing everywhere. I thought it's a clan thing and you're like from a major one, right? Shino feels a weird urge. A different, wholly unknown feeling. He wants Tala. It terrifies him. He's experienced amusement before, plenty of times. Usually at the cost of someone else's stupidity. This situation is no different, but the sheer absurdity of someone comparing a Hyuga and an Abiram. It's too much. With some effort, he manages to conceal his reaction and says. I will be there. Do not come to get me. The insects aren't usually friendly toward strangers. Naruto's face shows a sudden understanding, like the behavior of insects is something he knows at an intimate level, and nods. Cool, we'll see you at Denki's dango shop directly then. As Shino walks back to his desk, he acknowledges how stupid that shop's name sounds. Tenten almost vibrates in her seat when Naruto arrives at their table, something small and matte black held in his hand. She lunges for it and the blonde lets go of his possession with a short laugh. Sakura looks at her with twinkling eyes and persuades Lee into getting them all drinks. Chaoji joins the enthusiastic boy towards the inside of the shop to place their orders, and when they return, Shikamaru's already there seated where Lee had previously sat. Lee's too good to start quarreling about a chair, so he greets the Nara amicably before pulling another chair for himself. Chaoji places the different juices on the wood before turning towards Naruto. Where's Shino? I hope he isn't going to be a no-show. He'll be here, Naruto states like a fact. If he isn't, his questions will go unanswered and he definitely doesn't want that. So he's basically Shikamaru but less annoying. Tenten quips, looking at the slumped figure of the Nara. Precisely, Chaoji says, hiding a grin behind his glass. Shikamaru throws Tenten a dry look, ignoring their comments altogether. Shino. Kiba. It's Lee who spots them first and waves his hands in a beckoning motion, despite the fact that the two boys are already approaching them anyway. Hello, Shino greets, sweeping his gaze across the table. He ignores his little discomfort when Kiba forcefully pulls him down onto a chair. Glad you showed up, Sakura tells him, and Shino nods at her in acknowledgement. The other, older Kunoichi leans onto her palms, elbows placed firmly on the table. You must be the mysterious Shino, she says. Nice to meet you. I'm Tenten. This is the first time someone's described me as mysterious, he admits in a mutter. but yes, it's nice to meet you too. I'm Rock Lee. The other senior introduces with an overabundance of energy that sends Shino's Kakashi buzzing. Thank you for helping my dear friends out in their sealing journey. It's no problem, Shino says before turning towards Naruto. Now please tell me what's the scroll being used for. We're trying to decipher it, the blonde says, taking the scroll from Tenten and unfurling it. Trying to understand this particular sealing art and maybe recreate it. Mostly, we just want to try and make an object teleportation seal. Fascinating, Shino comments, scooting just a tad bit closer to Naruto to have a better look at the scroll's contents. I do not understand any of these symbols drawn. They do not seem to be the ones we incorporate in our seals. Naruto nods, holding the open scrolls at different angles, as if deciding which is the right way to read it. He continues the process for a minute or two before he stops and firmly places the scroll down again, using his palms to flatten the creases in the paper. There, he says, pointing at a random two-way arrow at the top right. That's the first command, and it's one we use too. It means this seal's actions are reversible, not permanent. Which is true, an ant summon can be unsummoned using this seal. All the other chains originate from this focal point. Tenten leans even further, almost standing now, chair forgotten as her eyes widen. You're right, she sounds awed, impressed, and Shino doesn't know the significance of Naruto's assessment, so he waits and observes. We've found the start. We just need to follow the chain now and gauge what each sequence means. Naruto chews the inside of his cheek, but when he looks up, his eyes shine with unbridled determination, a promise to fulfill this task the two amateur seal makers have undertaken. He takes a deep breath and picks up his glass of lemonade, completing it one go, while Sakura scolds him to slow down, and it's dripping on your shirt, you hooligan. All of them eat dango in peace as Tenten and Naruto hunch over the scroll and several different pieces of parchments, drawing and arguing and debating which symbol does what. Shino can tell they're not making any more breakthroughs, but the disappointment never shows on their features and they don't look anywhere close to giving up. At some point, Naruto's eyes get fixated on a particular symbol and he seems lost in it. Hyper-focused on that one design, and Shino thinks he's seeing some genius at play here that Naruto will break out of his trance and tell them he's figured the scroll out. But when the blonde blinks, he shakes his head at Tenten. He doesn't get inside out of thin air, and Shino realizes, with a small amount of that impressed outlook he'd seen in Tenten, that Naruto's conclusions are derived from his knowledge. Facts that he's spent time learning and practical experience from the seals he's already successfully made. It's funny how things shift into perspective in Shino's mind, but he's accustomed to his opinions changing time and again, so he files this little piece about Naruto in one corner of his neatly organized head. It's dark by the time Tenten and Naruto finally decide to stop and Shino's barely spoken a word. But he hadn't felt bored either. He'd sat and listened to Lee trying to get Sakura to count his push-ups and Chaoji arguing with the chef about the consistency of the dango served. He'd briefly observed Kiba too, who was constantly trying to wake the Nara up by asking Akamaru to jump on the guy. Tomorrow, same time? Naruto asks everyone as he helps Tenten pack up. Fine by me, Sakura says, and Chaoji nods too. I've got clan shogi tournament tomorrow, Shikamaru drawls. Can't make it. Such a thing doesn't exist, Naruto says, bewildered that the Nara would make up such a stupid thing. Quit lying. Shikamaru shrugs, but he seems to have acquiesced already. Worth a shot. Then the blonde turns to Shino and the bug user hadn't expected it, the deal ended here. He's got the information he wanted already and there's absolutely no reason for Naruto to expect his presence at any of their upcoming daily gatherings. You'll come too, right? Why should I? Because, Sakura turns towards him, clutching her book under her arm, we want you to. Come on, you know you had fun with us. I wouldn't exactly call it fun, Shino says, but it was indeed a new experience. I shall let you know whether I'll be attending any more of these sessions. For some reason, Naruto smiles widely at him and pulls him by the elbow towards the street. Welcome to the gang. He declares, and Shino's not sure who's getting welcomed and which gang he's speaking of, but his mind is too busy preventing his limbs from tripping over one another, so he banishes the questions for the time being and focuses on Naruto's abrupt movements. He's pulled in another one, Shikamaru says, watching the two with suppressed mirth. Sakura shakes her head in fondness, that's what extroverts do, don't they? Adopt the introverts as their friends. The Nara finds nothing wrong with that statement and simply continues to watch as Naruto laughs and drags Shino with him. Deactivating a seal. I remember my master used to say that one mustn't make a seal that one can't control. Following this train of thought, it's important that we learn not only the art of making a seal, but also activating and deactivating it. I've already provided instructions on seal activation, so let's focus on the other side of the coin in this chapter. Deactivating a seal translates to different meanings depending on the type of seal. For a seal that performs a steadily continuous function, deactivation can be temporary, a pause, a break, or permanent. For a seal that carries out an instantaneous task after certain conditions are met, deactivation is like de-escalating the buildup and preventing the main result of the seal are no changes or reverting the seal back to its former state in such a type of deactivation. A smart person will be first to argue that damaging the medium that carries the seal should be sufficient to render it useless. Cutting the paper in half or chipping away at a rock that holds the seal will ruin it, disrupting the chain. However, this isn't the safest method, nor does it leave any room to salvage the seal drawn. To deactivate a seal temporarily, we make another containment and release seal. Yes, we essentially seal the seal. It may sound like too much effort or something that might not be a viable option when time's against us, but I assure you that with enough practice, this seal can be designed under a few seconds. In any case, ripping the paper is always an option. The deactivation seal is simple. A generic containment matrix goes around the main seal. Naruto tries his best to understand this new concept. He'd never realized how harmful some seals could be. But reading this a method to control a seal that could be catastrophic or volatile in a damaging way, it makes sense that honing deactivation techniques is so important. He gets to work immediately, trying his best to not get distracted by the chatter around him. They've got a free lecture right now, a rare chance to enjoy some leisure time in the academy. But Naruto's already had his fun during the spars and target practice in the morning, so he's decided to do some studying in class. Sasuke sits beside him, and Naruto can tell he's trying to peep into his work. The guy's too damn prideful to simply ask Naruto to keep the page in the middle so he can easily see his drawings. The blonde side-eyes the Uchiha and raises his right arm purposely to cover his work, obstructing the Uchiha's already limited view. He can hear Sasuke make a funny noise, and when Sasuke subtly shifts closer to him, Naruto lets him. It's kind of amusing how everyone's always interested in his seals when no one, except Tenten and Sakura, can actually understand his designs. Half an hour passes by in such a manner. Naruto follows the pointers in the chapter and is almost done drawing a deactivation seal around his glue storage and release seal. For that, he'd had to activate it in the first place, but apart from his desk getting messy and sticky, no issues of real significance had arisen. A flurry of movement near the entrance draws his and everyone's attention then, and Naruto quickly shoves his tome back into his bag, his newly made seal taking its place in a folder under his desk. Iruka-sensei enters their class, seemingly pissed at something the students can't tell the reason for and hushes them till there's silence in the class. "So students," Iruka begins, and Shikamaru wonders why their teacher looks so unwilling to speak. He's usually quite the orator and a generally enthusiastic teacher. "I've got some news for you all. One recent development has just been brought to my attention. As you may know, our academy has exclusively Chunin instructors, and I'd like to think we make good teachers." Iruka pauses, looking towards the door again. He narrows his eyes at something or someone the other occupants of the room can't see and turns back towards them with a smile plastered on his face. "But to provide further insight to you all, the Hokage has endeavored to recruit a jounin to teach you one class per day. His name is Kakashi Haddock, and he'll be another instructor for grades 5 and 6 for the next year." "Haddock-san," Iruka looks to his right again, "please do come in." The man that walks in is easily the most nonchalant one Naruto's ever seen. His posture is oddly slumped, not in the way Shikamaru's is. Each step is relaxed yet alert, and the one eye that isn't covered seems to penetrate everything it sees. It unnerves Naruto a little, right until he sees a little interaction between his sensei and this new instructor. The Haddock guy pulls something out from his vest pocket, it's small and orange, and looks decidedly like a novel. Sakura leans forward, intrigued by the prospect of her new instructor being a bookworm like her. But then Iruka honest to Kami pounces for the book, hand outstretched like menacing claws, and Kakashi dodges by the width of a hair. Iruka whispers something then, too low for any of them to hear, but they can tell the man's pissed, hell, he's downright murderous, and Kakashi seems to have sensed it too, for he puts his book back in his pocket with elaborate actions. Iruka glares for a moment longer before realizing that everyone is staring at the two with way too much interest. He coughs and pulls Kakashi by the elbow till he's standing firmly in the center of the class. "This is Haddock-san. He's a distinguished ninja of our village, and I hope you all will behave when in his presence. He's a bit new to all this," Iruka says pointedly, as if relishing in the declaration of calling his senior a newbie. "So please do cooperate with him. I think that's all. He'll be taking your shinobi theory session right now. I'll be in the staff room in case anyone needs my assistance." With that, Iruka throws Kakashi a scrutiny-filled look before smoothly walking out the door. It's then that the man finally turns his whole attention to the kid seated inside. He sighs exaggeratedly before his face adopts an eye smile that looks very out of place on his usually bored features. "Hey kids," he says faux cheerfully. "Does any one of you think I'm going to teach you? Everyone contemplates an answer while Kakashi slowly walks to the teacher's chair and sits down, surprised by how comfortable the seat really is. Naruto frowns in thought, a little put off by the question. Why would he ask such a thing? Isn't the man being paid to teach them? It's a given, is it not? After a minute, almost every hand in the class goes up in affirmation, and Kakashi chuckles lowly. He removes his little orange book again, placing his legs onto the desk and slumps into his chair. Well, he says, you all thought wrong. Except the Nari are a smart one. The rest of the lecture goes by in silence. All the students stare at their new, very shameless teacher, and they're too baffled and astonished to actually voice out their offense. When the bell rings, Naruto is the first to get up. He walks up to Kakashi with purpose in each of his steps, and the man straightens up just a tad. You. He says, pointing a finger in the man's face. You are a jerk. I know, Kakashi's answer is automatic, what are you gonna do about it, hop hip squeak. Naruto narrows his eyes in irritation, but Sakura's already by his side. She places a calming hand on his shoulder and purses her lips at their teacher. We're all gonna do something about this, sensei, she says way too sweetly to be sincere. If you won't teach us, we'll get you fired. For some reason, the man looks kind of happy by that statement before amusement overwhelms his face and he waves an encouraging hand in her direction. Go on, he says. Show me what you all have got. Oh we will, Naruto says, stomping his feet as he walks towards the exit. They don't call me the greatest prankster for nothing. Taoji sweet, innocent, kind Chaoji leans towards Naruto and whispers. But no one calls you that, buddy. He's had it ready for a whole week now. He really has made the cluster of chakra detection seal and it works, he's tried it in small scales already. Hovering it around a bunch of bushes makes the indicators go off due to the rise in nature chakra in that small area. But now he's going to test it out on other objects, check if it can detect any traps. He starts just outside the gates of Konoha, still within the boundaries of the village's forests. He's certain there are some basic traps here for wild animals and trespassers. He's careful to avoid areas he's sure host traps, they're in obvious locations after all. No ninja worth their salt would travel via the ground when the branches are so much safer. So the traps for animals are usually tucked like landmines, going off when someone steps on it. The complex traps are supposed to be more difficult to evade, but his seal doesn't spot any, so he wanders deeper into the forests. He's walking between two thick trees, an oak and a linden when his seal beeps again. He halts his walk and crouches to brush his fingers in the dirt below, feeling for any ridges that typical traps have made so far. There are no bumps in the ground, the soil's smooth and continuous, but his seal doesn't lie. It's still releasing soft pops to tell him the area has got some chakra work done here and his curiosity is already going through the roof. It's then that he feels it. The minutest disturbance in his chakra. It's too subtle to guess its origin, but it's there and Naruto knows what's causing the higher chakra density in the area. A jinjutsu. Unfortunately, he doesn't know how to break out of it, so he takes out a kunai and marks the bark of the tree that seems to the epicenter of this area-wide jinjutsu. He'll come back to it later and bring Sakura along. He's sure she's capable of countering a jinjutsu placed there. Giving the dirt ground one final glance, he stands up and trudges back to the village proper. Adventurous sealing expeditions aside, he's got a lot of homework to do. You can break a jinjutsu, can't you? Ino looks at Sakura with suspicion, finding it odd that the pinkhead would initiate a conversation when all their talks for the last month had been restricted to polite pleasantries. I can't, she replies. Why do you ask? Sakura gives her a small smile that seems to light up her face. Ino likes that smile, it's just how she remembers it. Sakura's smiles have always been bold, even though most others might call it soft. Ino knows it's anything but soft. In that regard, Sakura really is a natural at deception. No one sees the thorns, just the pretty petals, but Ino isn't a fool. She sees Sakura for who she is. Sakura's no rose. She's a gladiolus. Naruto needs my help, she says. But I've never practiced breaking out of jinjutsu. I know you have. So will you accompany us to wherever it is that Naruto takes us? Ino considers before giving her response. It's not like the blonde would take her to some cave filled with chakra beasts. It's not going to be a deadly situation and she can bet it's something fun and harmless. Maybe some silly seal shenanigans again, and so far, she's not seen any of Sakura or Naruto's friends get injured. So she shrugs, dragging her hand through her hair to smooth them out. I'm in, and maybe she agrees for none of the reasons she thinks she does. Maybe Ino just wants to talk to Sakura to have this easy camaraderie between them again. Maybe it isn't to have Sakura owe her one and only to have a few more moments of exchanging quips again. Maybe this will be her chance to show Sakura that she can help her without lording it all over the girl. That Ino's changed and she really, almost desperately wants Sakura to know that fact. Awesome, Sakura says, eyes lighting up, and she's already turning towards Naruto, shouting how they've got themselves a third companion for their mission, but Ino isn't paying attention. Her eyes are too busy watching the bright grin on Sakura's face. Oh, the wonders of crushes. Ino has just begun noticing them. Sometimes, Kakashi wonders if his friends are right, if they've got a point when they tell him that he lives in a bubble of guilt detached from the present, only alive in the past. You're driving yourself towards a burnout, my dear rival. Months ago, Guy had told him, his shining eyes somber for once. Kakashi had given a careless shrug, brushing off any worries that plagued his friend. It hadn't worked. He knows when it began, the gray in his vision, the dull perspective towards life. Obito had fallen that day, dying a hero and a better friend than Kakashi had ever been towards him. It was also the day Kakashi made a promise he'd soon end up breaking. He hears it every single night. The shrilly chirp of his jutsu that had once been a subject of immense pride for him. He'd created it to save the people of his village, to protect his friends. But a cruel twist of fate made it the weapon he'd wielded to kill, murder, someone whispers in his head, his own friend. His life had been an uphill battle from the very beginning. With expectations that came with being a prodigy, he'd made genin long before any of his peers. He'd seen blood in his very own home, too. He wishes, though, for it to have been a battlefield instead. Because when he'd seen the lifeless body of his father, his only companion, some twisted, sick piece of his mind, had yearned for his father to have died in a different manner, more of a shinobi's death than how he'd actually passed away. The other part of him, the child, the innocent, heartbroken child, had wanted nothing more than to run up to his father and hug the man, crying and wailing and removing all the anguish that he'd contained within. He hadn't done it though. He'd stood there, silent, unmoving, a ghost in his own home. He'd stared at the gore, completely disconnected from the horror he was witnessing. It took a whole month before Kakashi shed even a single tear for his late father. Thereafter, loss was a constant in his life, something that he knew so intimately, it ached every single day. Obito, Rin, Kushina-san, Minato-sensei had lost them all. The memorial stone is his place of solace, his retreat from the noisy nothingness of the shinobi world he's never had the courage to leave. Staring at the names of the fallen is morbid and depressing for many, but for Kakashi, it's his way of knowing that these people he'd shared bonds with were real and alive at some point. That the things he'd experienced weren't some brutal nightmares. That he'd heard Obito's warm laughter, Rin's soft chiding. That he'd felt Kushina-san's rough head pats and Minato-sensei's ever so kind gestures. The disquietness of his head is rarely soothed, and most of the time, he lives with a voice that hates him. A voice that blames him, passing jabs and comments about his unreliability, his untrustworthiness, his incompetence. His own inner voice hates him, and he can't bring up the willpower to ever divert his thoughts elsewhere. A handful of people can truly say they understand him somewhat. And even they don't know the depth of his self-loathing, the depth of his issues, and unless he shares them, he isn't sure they'll ever know. There's one thing that's a silent comfort, though someone he never thinks about consciously because it always hurts. That someone is Naruto, the son of his sensei, the only legacy of the man he'd come to love as a father. The boy's a joy to behold, right from his birth on that awful night. The whiskers, the chubby cheeks, the eyes so blue, so very blue, that smile, it's also reminiscent of the ghosts Kakashi remembers, but also not. Naruto's the child of legends, but he's also an orphan, unaware of how his parents had even looked like. And now that Kakashi has seen Naruto for what he truly is, it doesn't seem agonizing to think about him any longer. It doesn't make him feel constricted and remorseful when he looks up from his Icha book and sees as Naruto cracks a bad joke that sends Choji laughing. It doesn't make his insides icy when he playfully challenges Naruto and the blonde puffs his cheeks in annoyance and indignation. It doesn't hurt when he feels affection towards the person he can only consider his young brother, never mind the apprehension such a feeling creates. So yes, Kakashi does let himself relax, truly relax, not the convincing front he puts on for everyone around him. He lets go, for just that hour or two, the memories of a past he wishes so desperately to change. He sits in the Konoha Academy, infuriatingly nonchalant, teasing his batch of wannabe ninjas, baiting them, and he chuckles like he once used to when one of them goes red in the face, so very offended by his lazy attitude. He also watches and observes because almost a decade of being an ANBU member doesn't help brush off his vigilant instincts. Maybe that, and his familiarity with all kinds of secrets, helps him spot at the hushed whispers, the sideway glances, the fizzy excitement of an upcoming thrill. Maybe that's why he uncovers so easily yet another secret, one he doesn't share, one he himself isn't hiding, but one that Naruto is guarding, along with two friends of his. And maybe it's plain curiosity or something more deeper, more protective, that urges him to follow along when the blonde rushes outside after class, only to regroup with Sakura and Ino at the edge of the forests. Whatever the reason, Kakashi is only grateful he's right there with them, a shadow trailing their moves. 2 steps to your right. Naruto directs, all razor-sharp focus to go along with his agile leaps. Ino huffs, the soil entering her toenails a cause of mild irritation. How much longer? She asks, following Sakura's carefully left behind trail of sandal prints. Almost there. Naruto replies. Now hurry up you slacker. Hey. Ino glares at the blonde's back in severe offense but softens when she hears the pinkhead's soft chuckle. Stop being so bossy. Bossy? Naruto halts and turns around, a bit bewildered before he scowls in a way that looks more like he's trying to suppress a pout. But then he's laughing, warm and bright and maybe just a tiniest bit mischievous. Says the bossiest girl of our class. You're talking about me? Ino asks as they all resume walking again. Surely, you must be joking. I'm not, Naruto shoots back. Why don't you ask Sakura if you don't believe me? Ino immediately whips her head towards her friend, only to feel betrayed by that traitor's amused nod. He's got a point, she tells Ino. But hey, if you tone down that bossiness, you'll be an awesome leader one day. Ino looks away and restrains the urge to smile. It won't do to look happy about them teasing her. She has a bossy image to uphold after all, so she says. Don't give me a thinly veiled pep talk. Sakura laughs and nudges her side with her elbow. Look, we've reached. Staring at the plain and boring tree ahead, Ino is less than impressed. She raises a brow. This piece of wood is why you forced me to walk all the way here. Seriously? Don't you feel it? Naruto asks, eyes a tad wide in excitement. Feel why? Ino stops, feeling the tug and pull going on inside her chakra network. Oh, Kami, this whole thinjut's a jinjutsu. Seems so, Sakura says, surveying their surroundings. The whole cluster of trees is eerily symmetrical in a way that naturally grown green cover isn't supposed to be. The soil is a little too flat, as if the constant treading of feet never causes any impact on it. The leaves seem greener despite the slightly yellowish hue the other trees seem to be adopting this time of year. The hints are so obvious. Wonder why no one else discovered this spot before. It's completely out of the way, Naruto says, idly kicking the trunk of the tree where his kunai mark lay. The traps here are mostly for the wild animals are not for any ninja. The shinobi from Konoha, too, take the route east of here. If it wasn't for my seal, I wouldn't have come stumbling here either. So now what? Ino asks, glancing around to get a feel of just how widespread the illusion is. Want me to break us out of whatever jutsu's put here? Naruto nods, yeah. Some of this is definitely real. I can actually feel and touch this tree, but the rest it looks off. There's got to be something shady going on here. Naruto, Sakura shifts on her feet, a small frown on her forehead. Shouldn't we tell a shinobi about this? Haruka-sensei or Hikari-sensei? I don't think this is if. Naruto stares contemplatively at the tree, biting his lip. Ino, though, sits cross-legged on the ground, the worrying of the other two not affecting her at all. We'll be fine, she says, shutting her eyes close. There's no one waiting around for us to break the illusion so they can pounce and kill us. They could have done it the moment we entered the area. Other traps don't get triggered when a jinjutsu is broken out of. So someone's just hiding something here. What if it's a mole treasure? Or it could be one of those lame time capsule things Dad keeps telling me about. Sakura's unconvinced, but when she looks over at Naruto, he seems to be at ease again, intently looking at Ino to go ahead and detangle the jutsu-induced mirage thereunder. Alright, she relents even as she palms the metallic kunai she has made a point to always carry around in her back pocket. But if I get the slightest of hint that something's wrong, we're running. Yes ma'am, Naruto says with a small smile and shifts closer so their arms brush. We've got this. Ino makes a sound then, something between a whoop of joy and a choked sound of misery. What happened? Sakura crouches instantly and shakes Ino by the shoulder. The blonde doesn't open her eyes but shakes her head, brows scrunching up in distress. I can sense the origin of the tug, Ino says, leaning her elbows on her own thighs and resting her face on her palms. But I just can't get it undone. It's too complicated. The chakra used for the jinjutsu doesn't seem only one person's. Multiple people created it and are maintaining it. I can't get myself out of it. She opens her eyes now, scowling towards the dirt. I just know the normal way. This is beyond me. It's okay, Sakura says, because she can sense Ino's disappointment all too clearly. I don't think we should mess with this anyway. We need to go report it to an adult. Yup, Naruto says, and unlike what Ino thinks, he's not despondent over the fact that he didn't get to unravel this particular mystery. Thanks for trying, Ino. You're super cool at this jinjutsu stuff. Ino rolls her eyes, getting up and dusting her shorts. Stop trying to console me, you idiot. Naruto grins and purposely walks a few steps away from here before saying. Look, you're being bossy again. Sakura just shakes her head, pulling an irate Ino along with her. Hirazen's mind is numb for a minute, no thoughts, no dread, no indication that a very horrifying revelation has been dumped on him. He blinks and his forehead creases tightly, lips press in a line. You're sure? He asks seriously, scrutinizing the man before him. Kakashi lounges in the wooden chair opposite him, but even Hiruzen knows that he's not relaxed right now, no matter what his posture might suggest. Absolutely, the Jounin leans forward. There's no other explanation. I really should have seen this coming, the Hokage rubs a hand over his worry-worn face. Very well, I'll send Kurenai to assist you. Break the Jinjutsu. Confirm your suspicions. I'll have a talk with Shikaku this evening and we'll have as many shinobi as you want under your command. I trust your instincts, Kakashi. Don't let the bastard get away but at the same time, don't let panic ensue. I don't want our people to get agitated, though something tells me that it's inevitable. Kakashi gives a graceful nod, I know. Danzo will be dead if Root's still operating, you have my word. Hiruzen's tired smile is neither convincing nor soothing. They both know what a great threat Danzo poses, and if he's allowed to remain unthreatened, the man is capable of feats far worse than running a shinobi corps underground illegally. They just hope it's not too late to put an end to it all. They're definitely going to tell Iruka, by the way. Hiruzen raises a brow, then deal with it. I don't want this information floating around at the academy. Why me? Kakashi counters. Aren't you a pseudo-grandfather to him? Just tell him to keep it under wraps. He's going to come to you with the information anyway. I won't do it because you, Kakashi Haddock, sorely need to socialize, the older man rolls his shoulders to get the stiffness out of them. Sitting on a chair for hours straight is not an easy task. I've heard you barely talk to anyone at the academy, except a few of your students, and that's practically your job. You're one to talk, Kakashi retorts. When was the last time you checked in with Asuma? Or anyone else for that matter? Passing around orders to shinobi doesn't count, that's practically your job. I can't deal with your snark right now, Hiruzen waves a hand. I'm 60-something, for Kami's sake. Didn't you ever learn to not talk back to your elders? Please, Kakashi rolls his eyes, standing up. You love it when someone disregards your authority. You hate being the cage, don't you? That's enough, Hiruzen's back to being his stern self now, their moments of banter are always short-lived. You're dismissed. Awesome, Kakashi mutters and walks towards the door. Without turning back, he says, don't be sentimental about this, Hokage-sama. We don't want Danzo becoming another Orochimaru, do we? Hiruzen hears the words but feels just the prick of poison needles. This is going to be freaking awesome. Kiba whispers, eyes wide in anticipation as he and his classmates wait for their new instructor to enter. Kakashi walks in his usual style, shoulders slightly hunched and one hand holding his little orange book. He's 2 steps inside when he notices something's not right. He side glances towards the students and understands what's off. They're all staring at him. That's nothing new. They always stare at him. His weirdness is attention grabbing that way. But most days, they're also glaring and scowling in his general direction. He's quite capable at making people hate him, it's a talent really. But today, no one's particularly upset or angry at his presence, which is a shame, he thinks he'll have to be more annoying moving forward, but they're all looking at him in utmost fascination. Correction, not looking at him but at his mask. No one looks specifically at his mask after they first met him. People's eyes just glaze over it, they know it's never coming off. That's boring, so any concentration put over the piece of cloth is wasted. These children were the same, until today. Now, their eyes seem to see something below the mask, and for one terrifying second, Kakashi thinks there's a hole in his mask and they can see what's underneath. A quick downward movement of his pupil and he's assured that his cover is intact. Some girl gasps dramatically, I can see your face. Okay, what the fuck? Kakashi looks at his mask again and it's definitely there, all blue and stretchy and plain. He turns towards the girl who'd said it, but then there's another boy standing up and pointing at his face with a look of pure awe. Me too, is this actually how you look like? Thoroughly confused now, Kakashi quickly walks to his desk and drops his book on the wood. Opening the drawer, he pulls out the little shard of glass he dropped there a week ago, intending to dispose it properly the next day. He brings it to eye level and squints hard. There. His mask is still on, and no one should be able to see the lower half of his face. And yet. I didn't think you'd look like this, it's Sasuke, of all people, who says this, eyeing Kakashi like he's an exotic species of insect. I know right. Naruto says. Now I understand why you wear that damn thing all the time. Kakashi blinks at the blonde, you do? I do, the boy nods seriously. Kakashi shakes his head and they're all still there, staring, looking through his mask somehow, looking straight at his face. He makes a run for the door, he thinks he's elegant about it. He's not. I've gotta go, see you later kids. The moment he disappears round the hallway, the whole class erupts into laughter, cheering and high-fiving each other for a prank well done. Did you see the look on his face? Ino asks between breathy giggles. Pure mortification, he fell so hard for this one. He was so shocked. The idiot teacher was looking at his reflection in the mirror. "Nice job there, Sasuke," Naruto compliments, eyes shining with laughter. "Didn't think you had it in you." Sasuke shrugs, "Well, it was amusing." The blonde smiles cheekily, "I planned it after all." 2 minutes after he leaves the classroom, Kakashi stumbles into Iruka. "Listen," he says urgently to the Chunin. Can you see my face?" Iruka gives the man a funny look, deciding whether the Jounin had lost his mind or his students had made the Jounin lose his mind. "No," he says carefully. "That mask on your face is quite the obstacle to do so, don't you think?" Kakashi frowns in confusion before a few shrieks of laughter reach their ears. "Oh," he says, realization hitting him all of a sudden, and he groans. "Oh." Iruka glares at the man, hitting his arm with his stack of papers. "Move aside, I need to get to class." "Could you do me a favor?" I want to say no, but I know you'll ask for it anyway. So go ahead. Kakashi's mask curves upward at the sides. "Tell your students to go fuck off, please." Iruka returns the smile, "On behalf of my students, you should fuck off too." Kakashi chuckles, walking away and makes a point to pull up his mask every now and then just in case. Triggers. As we approach the end of this beginner's crash course, it's only fitting that I speak of triggers that can activate a seal without any assistance, which, if you've had any practice with making seals, you might have unknowingly incorporated already. Generally, triggers are keyed to impact or chakric imprint. A certain amount of force or a specific chakra signature gets the seal rolling, and it's the most useful type of trigger too. But there are several more kinds of triggers you can use. Some are as specific as someone's voice saying a certain word with an emphasis on a certain letter. The others are less so. Some seals have inherent functions that lie dormant till triggered. This can be caused by the host turning a specific age, or in case of an inanimate object heating up to a certain degree. Emotions can also be triggers. Anger, happiness, relief, sadness can be used to activate some seals. Functions of seals, though feeling-based triggers are very tricky to get right. In this chapter, I'll walk you through the process of adding a trigger to a chakra release seal, which will work if the temperature surrounding the scroll parchment reaches X degrees. Start off with a component for heat and heat sensing. Add a basic array for the condition action process and Naruto handles the brush masterfully as he goes about drawing the trigger portion of his chakra release seal. He's done with storage part. Some pure chakra resides within the scroll already. He dips the pointed brush in the permanent ink containing bottle and continues the process of drawing strokes and symbols and kanji that end up looking nonsensical to Kiba and Chaoji, who stare at his handiwork. "Got the ice?" he asks, without looking up. Someone drops a very cold pack on his arm and he yelps, letting the brush go. The ice slides off his arm and he glares up at the Nara who drops in the seat next to his. "You ruined the seal," Shikamaru says bluntly. Naruto elbows the Nara's side, "You did, not me. Couldn't you have put it on all this space on the table?" "My hand was cramping up with the chill," Shikamaru says, yawning. "Be grateful that I even ran this errand for you." "Thank you," Naruto grumbles, pulling out another paper to start all over. "Did Sakura and Ino tell Iruka-sensei?" Shikamaru dropped his head on the desk, head turned sideways to peek at Naruto as he worked. "About you three's Genjutsu escapade." Naruto nods and the Nara nods right back. "What did he say?" the blonde asks. He'd been too engrossed in his reading to accompany the two girls. "Does he know something about it?" "Maybe," Shikamaru says. "He didn't seem too bothered by it. You should stop fretting over it. It's probably some old temple base or one of the old war battlegrounds. They're usually covered in heavy genjutsu." Naruto can tell there's something Shikamaru knows that he doesn't, but he doesn't want to pry, even though he's sure he can get the information out of the Nara. "If you say so," Naruto mutters before continuing with his seal work. A few minutes pass before both Chaoji and Kiba leave the class to head outside. They usually spar in the grounds during break time with Lee. "Enjoy," Naruto shouts after them. "You know," Shikamaru says idly, casually, "you should also hone your taijutsu more." Naruto frowns, finally putting his brush down, done with the trigger drawing. "What do you mean?" He gets up and runs the brush under the tap water by the corner. "I do practice hand to hand in all our classes, you know." "You lost against Kiba yesterday," the Nara points out. "You both used to be on par. Now, you're too focused on your seals to train in anything else." Naruto's frown deepens and he looks at Shikamaru. "I can still kick your ass." "True," Shikamaru agrees, shrugging. "But unlike you, taijutsu has never been my strong suit. I can still defeat you with my clan jutsu, which, for the record, I've been getting better at this whole year." "What else?" "What do you mean? What other shinobi art are you into? If you're advising me to get better at Tai, surely you've got another skill of your own to learn." "Well," Shikamaru runs a hand through his ponytail. "My mum's teaching me about herbal medicine and poison making. I do enjoy learning about it." Naruto looks at him with some wonderment. "Really? That's awesome. Are you gonna, like, be a ninja doc? Shikamaru laughs softly, they're called mednin. Like Swan of the Sanin. Remember? Right, Naruto hops into his seat again, drying the brush on his pants. So, let's make a pact. I'll dedicate more time towards Taijutsu if you do the same towards medicine. Actually, the Nara interrupts. I need to get into medical ninjutsu now. Naruto looks struck with even more awe. Healing with chakra, that's what our nurse does, doesn't she? Exactly, Shikamaru commends, extending his hand. But yes. Let's make that pact. Naruto gladly accepts the hand and gives it an enthusiastic shake. Deal. Tenten and Lee enter the park, spirits high because of the added metallic weight that lies on both their foreheads. Congratulations. Naruto yells the moment he sees them. Tenten gracefully moves out of the way and the blonde leaps and tackles Lee with vigor. Both boys share a brief hug while Sakura pats Tenten a little too roughly on the back. Well done you, the pinkhead says. How does it feel to officially be a Kunoichi? Tenten shrugs, honestly, there's not much difference. I guess the novelty of it is yet to settle in for me, we haven't even been assigned teams yet. That's tomorrow. Will you and Lee be together? Kiba asks, petting Akamaru behind the ears. Who knows? Tenten replies as the whole group gets seated on the grass. They will be, Shino mutters, tone bland. Why, you ask? Well, Tenten's many rants have told us that Lee is at the bottom of their batch if academics are considered, whereas Tenten has passed as the Kunoichi of the year. Analyzing previous team formation patterns has provided me with enough insight to know that the dead last and best Kunoichi are put in the same team. I hope you're right, Shino-san. Lee exclaims, relieved by the prospect of having a friend in his team. He's right, Shikamaru says. The information I've got out of my father also suggests so. That's great then, Tenten comments, hooking her arm around Lee's. We're gonna be one kick-ass team. Lee grins, definitely. Wait, Tenten turns towards Shino again. Do you, by any chance, know who the third member of our team might be? Shino nudges his glasses upwards with a finger. The rookie of the year, whoever he is. Tenten groans, falling flat on the ground, arms sprawled. Oh Kami, I can't deal with that asshole Hyuga. Cheer up my friend, Lee encourages while pumping his fist in the air. Fret not, we shall befriend Niji in no time. That's exactly the moment when Sasuke Uchiha walks into the ground, spots them all chatting merrily by the trees, stops and blinks rapidly. He's here to spar with Lee on the occasion of the older boy becoming genin. He'd acquiesced when Lee had asked him to train at a different ground, but Sasuke didn't know so many other people would also be there, too. He contemplates running away quietly and making some excuse tomorrow. He's not going to make a spectacle out of his spar with Lee, absolutely not. His few moments of indecision though cost him, for Sakura looks up and directly meets his eyes, grinning like the little shit she is. Sasuke. She shouts, and now everyone is staring at him, which is so very wonderful, isn't it? Come join us. Sasuke glares pointedly at Lee. No, I'm not getting involved with you crazy people. Crazy? Naruto echoes, standing up. You wound us. Sasuke continues to dig holes in Lee's skull through his fiery gaze. Lee, come here right now. Lee gets to his feet, throwing nervous glances at Sasuke and then at Naruto, who looks ready to restrain Lee with force. Hey, guys, it's our sparring time. Y'all can wait while we get done with our training. Naruto suddenly relaxes and grins because spectating a taijutsu match is a win in his book, forcing Sasuke to be social. Can wait for now. Why are they here? Sasuke hisses the moment Lee's close enough to hear. I'm sorry. It slipped my mind. Lee says, a sheepish look on his face, and the Uchiha can't even stay mad at Lee because he does, in fact, look apologetic. He gives Lee another studying look before deciding to let the matter drop, but not before one final warning of. If you set up an ambush with your friends again, I will stop this arrangement of ours. Lee nods, seriously and sharply because he's earnest that way. You've got it. No more ambushes, he pauses, but that won't stop Naruto from very obviously and evidently trying to make you talk more. Hope you know that. Sasuke doesn't reply until their spar is underway. He lands a particularly hard-hitting punch on Lee's torso, huffing out, oh I do know it. Lee grins, wide with exhilaration, and retaliates with a sharp back kick. All the while, Tenten oohs and ahs over every impactful hit, and sometime, Sakura joins in. Kiba jumps around, trying to watch the match from every angle imaginable. Shikamaru slumps against a tree, one bored eye tracing the two boys' moves, while the other remains stubbornly shut. Chaoji's not here today, it's his training day with his dad, but tomorrow, he's promised to come to the academy with a homemade cake to celebrate Tenten and Lee's geninship. Shikamaru tells Naruto so when he inquires about Chaoji's whereabouts. The spar comes to an end, Lee coming out victorious, but only barely. Great job Lee. Tenten says cheerily. That last move, that was so awesome. Lee chuckles a bit in embarrassment, silently accepting the compliment while Sasuke stares impassionately at the both of them. You did great too, you big baby, Naruto teases, suddenly beside Sasuke. I don't care, the Uchiha says. Sure you don't? Yes, I don't. And I said I believe you. You didn't say those exact words. But it was implied. Sasuke doesn't reply, staring straight ahead at a lone bark. Boy. Naruto tries to draw his attention. Why did you suddenly stop talking? Sasuke turns and smiles plainly at the blonde. I was trying to imply through my silence that I don't wish to interact with you. Smart ass, Naruto remarks with a roll of his eyes, and Sasuke doesn't understand where the little fondness in the other boy's voice is coming from. You two should spar, Shikamaru drawls from his place near the tree. Why? Naruto asks, because he genuinely doesn't know. Remember our deal? The Nara prompts, lips twitching upwards. You gotta train somehow. And Sasuke seems to be quite free at the moment. Oh, Naruto blinks and turns towards Sasuke. You up for one spar? Sasuke's side glances him for a long time. You won't let me say no, will you? You know it, Naruto says, running towards a smoother area. Come on then. I wanna show Shikamaru I don't suck at Taijutsu. Sasuke drags his feet to stand opposite from Naruto. 20 minutes later, the blonde lies breathing heavily on the ground, having received his thorough ass kicking from the Uchiha. You knew this would happen, Naruto accuses. Shikamaru doesn't hide his smirk as he places his hand on Naruto's very sore shoulder. Don't cry, he mock-soothes. It happens. Naruto looks at the Nara through his lashes. I will bite your hand off your wrist. Naruto. Sakura calls out, scandalized by his threat. You will do no such thing. Naruto pouts, all thoughts of biting people's hands leaving his mind. How am I supposed to exact revenge against him then? That's easy, silly, Sakura says, smiling sweetly at Shikamaru. Just untie his ponytail. He absolutely hates it. Just so it's fair and all, Naruto says, grinning, even as he sees the Nara inch away from him. I give you 3 seconds. Run. Shikamaru gets up faster than he ever has before and he's sprinting towards the exit, pushing Lee and Sasuke out of the way, but Naruto's already on his tail, feet light and feathery, as the blonde chases the Nara. And in the distance, the sun sets with a soothing orange, the birds chirp lullabies for their young ones, and Konoha witnesses the end of yet another serene day. What if Uzumaki clan lied to about Naruto? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.